Hello guys, welcome to the fiction series. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto got harem with Charlie, Cherri and Loona? Part 2. If you want more awesome fan fiction like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, so without wasting any time, let's get into the video. As soon as Naruto stepped out of the limo, there was a visual change in the demons surrounding the entrance. The paparazzi demons recoiled at the mere presence of the heavenly being, the golden halo over his head, reminding them of the exorcists that come down every year to purge hell and make room for newly damned souls. Ignoring the gazes he was getting, he offered his hands to his companion. A gloved white hand gently took his tanned one as he helped Charlie out of the limo. The Princess of Hell smiled, holding the hand of her fellow blonde before the two walked down the carpet, ignoring the thousands of photos being taken of them. She knew that many of the newspapers of Hell would have a field day with them. The Princess of Hell goes to one of the highest profile parties with the natural enemy of all hellish beings. But that didn't matter, she was here to prove a point. To show that cooperation between heaven and hell was possible. And if that was possible, then perhaps people being allowed into heaven from hell was possible too. They could hear mutters coming from the lesser sinner demons and imps that crowded the entrance in hopes of catching a glimpse of the infernal celebrities. She looked a bit concerned for Naruto, who was getting his fair share of insults from the demons. The things her people were saying to her friend were heartbreaking. Name-calling, slurs, and even death threats. Some even threw things at him, only for him to block or avoid them with ease. She loved her people, she wanted only the best for them, but she hated how they were treating the only person to wholeheartedly believe in her project. Looking at the blonde with concern, she saw him calmly waving at the demons, as if they weren't openly showing him disdain and hatred. They hated him, they feared him for what he was, and yet he didn't let that get to him. He took their darkness and gave back his light. Smiling, she turned and waved at the crowd, following his example. As they got to the door, they were greeted by two suited hellhounds that Lucifer probably hired to block the entrance, so no rabble came in. They both towered over even the over 6 feet tall Charlie, their gazes fixed on Naruto before they stepped aside and let them through. "You better not cause any trouble, Angel," one growled out at the blonde, who just gave him a grin and walked by. "Or we'll give you a one-way ticket back to heaven," the other added on, cracking his knuckles. "Don't worry, I won't start anything," he replied, putting a bit of extra emphasis on the I part of his response. Charlie knew exactly what that meant. He wouldn't start any conflicts, but he'd react if he needed to. A veiled threat to the two and anyone listening in that he wasn't afraid to defend himself. Being inside didn't exactly help their situation. The moment they stepped onto the follow of the massive ballroom, they could feel the many gazes of the high-ranking demons on them. Some were more obvious than others, but none openly did anything against them. "Your father really outdid himself, didn't he?" Naruto asked as everything seemed rather luxurious. It was the epitome of indulgence and sin. He could see a few demons off to the side enjoying what appeared to be a drug buffet. He saw a copious amount of illicit substances separated out for the partygoers use as they wished. There was almost anything one could think of to eat, from simple human foods to the most horrid of dishes made by the most demonic chefs in hell. Charlie gave him a nervous smile when she saw his face drop at the sight of some people enjoying the less than savory choices of food. "Yeah, he really did," Charlie muttered as Lucifer seemed to have gone a bit further beyond this party compared to past ones. Part of her made her wonder if it was all to rub his riches in the blonde saint's face. Or to discourage him, she thought to herself as she figured that perhaps her father was trying to use this party against him as much as he was against her. To show him how disgusting some demons were and the sort of things they'd do if given the chance. "Oh my, well, if it isn't Naruto," the blondes heard as a tall demon with empty black eyes came to greet them. She was dressed in an elegant red Victorian dress that seemed fit for a lady of high standing. "Hey Rosie," the blonde greeted, taking an offered hand and giving it a light kiss to greet the old-fashioned demoness. "I received an invite from Lucifer after I left," he admitted. "Well, isn't that delightful," she exclaimed as she looked around and saw that many of the other demons were giving her new friend dirty looks. "I say, some demons are quite unruly now, aren't they?" the overlord commented as some demons turned their backs to them when they saw the cannibalistic shop owner look at them, likely scared that they'd become her next meal if she kept her gaze on them. "Eyeball," she offered from her hors d'oeuvre plate. "No thanks," the two replied at the same time. Naruto let out a sigh of relief at the fact that Charlie wasn't a cannibal, or at the very least wasn't open about it. "Well, more me," Rosie responded, picking one up with a wooden skewer and placing it in her mouth, relishing in the flavor. "Delectable," she stated happily, the flavor. While their king might not be the most active ruler when compared to his wife, she had to admit that the food he put out was to die for. "I heard you two will be making a big announcement here." "Oh, I can't wait to see what this big project is," she said before being called over by some other demons. "My, it looks like I'm needed elsewhere," she lamented, bringing her hand to her cheek. "Don't let us keep you, Rosie, it was nice seeing you," Naruto told her, not wanting to make her feel like she needed to stay here. "It was my pleasure, if you ever are in need of anything, just leave it to Rosie," she said in response before waving farewell and going over to another group of demons that were carving into a human. "I didn't know you knew an overlord," Charlie said, not realizing that Naruto might have made some powerful connections while out in the Pride Ring. "I met her yesterday while on my walk," he told her as they were offered glasses of what looked to be a bubbly white wine or champagne by a server demon. Naruto grabbed two and offered one to the hotel owner. "I don't know," she said, feeling like indulging in drinking would make her a hypocrite when she was trying to get other demons to give up on their bad habits. Naruto smiled, "Drinking at evens isn't a sin, you know, well, as long as you don't overdo it. Jesus did turn water to wine once as a miracle," he mentioned. Drinking wine wasn't exactly against the rules of heaven, as long as they didn't get too drunk. Plus it can help soothe the nerves, Naruto added. Taking the glass, she took a sip of the liquid. It wasn't that good tasting, but she'd tasted the worst thing before. Naruto smiled and drank some of the liquid, using his heavenly energy to burn away the demonic properties of the drink. "It's not bad," Charlie said as the two continued to walk through the party. Naruto raised an eyebrow when Charlie gasped. He thought that maybe she'd seen someone whom she had a bad history with, but instead, she rushed over to one of the tables with food on it and grabbed what looked to be pizza. "Ever had pineapple pizza?" she asked delightedly that her father had put out the food. Naruto admittable had pizza down while he was working on a special assignment in Italy, but when it came to pineapple on pizza, he heard that it was a sin against nature. Given that it was apparently served in hell, the Italians might not have been too far off. "Not really, but I'll give it a try," the former shinobi replied, figuring that it couldn't be so bad. Charlie took a bite of her slice and seemed to moan in delight. "Savory and sweet, here, try some," she exclaimed, holding it towards him. Naruto chuckled and rolled his eyes, but took a bit of the offered pizza. Charlie waited for his response with bated breath. To Naruto, it really wasn't the best topping on pizza. He had better, but he preferred it over some other topics like anchovies. Fish on pizza was the real sin. "It's pretty good," he told her, getting a brilliant smile out of the princess. "Glad you like it. A lot of demons say it's a crime," Charlie mentioned, a bit dejected, feeling that it was unfair for demons to say that something's criminal when they are literally in hell. "But they're in hell," Naruto muttered, confused as to the logic. "Exactly," she stressed, hearing a few confused looks from some nearby guests. "I thought I heard a half-wit." Charlie's face soured at the voice. Naruto could see hints of her demonic form starting to peek out at the side of another female demon with dark gray skin and neon green eyes. Her long hair was white on top, but the bottom resembled gray tentacles, making the blonde saint believe that they likely were which covered her right eye. Her sharp teeth were the same color as her eyes, and like Charlie, she seemed to have black lips. "Elsa," Charlie greeted, not exactly happy to see her fellow demon. "I see your sense of style is still garbage, check," the gray-skinned demon responded, crossing her arms under her bust to make them look more pronounced in her dress. It was clear to both blondes that she was trying to show off the fact that she had a large chest than the princess. "Yeah? Well, at least I don't look like a loser," the hotel owner childishly retorted. "Brilliant comeback, princess, I see you finally ditched the baton feeder," she asked, looking around, referring to Vaggie. That set Charlie off, her horns jolt up from her head and her scleras turning red. "Don't you dare insult Vaggie," the princess yelled at the other demon, who just smirked at how riled up Charlie seemed to get at the jab at the woman she loved. "What did you want anyways?" she asked through clenched teeth. "I just wanted to see what all the talk was about," Elsa answered, looking at the native from heaven. Looking him over, she licked her lips. As a natural-born demon, she didn't feel the same natural fear that sinner demons felt. There was still a strange feeling to him, likely from the holy energy within him, but it wasn't the worst. "Elsa von Eldritch," she introduced herself to the saint. "Naruto Uzumaki," Naruto replied, bowing his head slightly. Since this was a formal event, even if it was in hell and filled with demons, Naruto felt that he should at the very least try and be polite. "I'm shocked you could pull someone like him, clown face," Elsa stated, seeing that by human standards, Naruto would be considered very attractive due to his honed body and a combination of factual features that was both wild and defined. "How about we ditch the classless fool here and get to know each other?" she asked the former shinobi. She wasn't particularly interested in him, but if it hurt Charlie's feelings, she'd steal her man right in front of her. Charlie couldn't help but feel even more enraged at her rival's flirting with her friend. A strange feeling of jealousy flared up inside her chest as Elsa pressed her bust against Naruto's chest and grinned up at him. Despite the attempt to seduce him, he maintained his calm composure on the outside. "Sorry, but it wouldn't feel right to leave my friend alone," he replied, declining the advancement from the tentacled woman. Charlie couldn't help the smile on her face as her friend picked staying by her side over going off with the noble demoness. Regardless of whether Helsa's attraction to the haloed being was real or not, she didn't seem to take it too well, if the sudden appearance of a few extra eyes and the shifting of her hair were signs of anything. "You'd really rather stay with this goody two-shoes singing fool than go with me?" she asked, glaring at the man she had just hit on. "What was that, you skank?" Charlie roared out as fire started to gather around her. That got the attention of all the partygoers, who now were giving the two women their full attention. Some immediately started to place bets as to who would win. "The funk did you say, you clown-faced failure?" Helsa shouted back at the insult. Her hair was now fully disheveled as even more eyes butted across her body. On her stomach, a second mouth appeared to open up. The crowd looked excited at the prospect of a fight between them, some even cheering for them to do some truly unspeakable things to the other. A scowl crossed Naruto's face at how much the residents of Hell seemed to want the two to go at it. Large white and gray tentacles wrapped around Helsa's body, dragging her back towards a suit-wearing man who looked extremely similar to the demoness. Helsa struggled against his grasp before giving up and being placed on the floor in front of him. At the man's side was a woman who also looked similar to Helsa, but was older with whiter hair, and a younger male who seemed a bit embarrassed by the situation. Charlie was stopped by Naruto, now clad in a flaming white aura that resembled his six-path sage mode from when he was alive. Her punch slammed against his chest, blocked by the code of energy around his body. "That's enough, Charlie," he said softly, hands on her arms to show that he was there for her and to stop her in case she wanted to continue attacking. Red eyes went wide as Charlie realized just who she had attacked. Pulling back her fist, she looked down at the ground. "Naruto, I'm so sorry," she apologized, tears swelling in her eyes as she couldn't look up at his eyes, not because she feared seeing the look of anger or disappointment on his face, but rather because she knew that he was neither of those, and the look was purely of concern. "It's fine," he said as the two powered down back into their original forms. He heard some demons start to boo at the interruption, but they were quickly silenced when the double doors at the top of a massive staircase opened and Lucifer emerged. "Sounded like we were missing quite the party," the King of Hell said, smiling at his wife before looking down at the conflict below. Charlie met her father's eyes and returned back to her normal form, while Naruto powered down, the white flames and markings vanishing as well. "Leviathan, take your sister to get herself compassed," the older demon told what appeared to be his son. The younger demon nodded and helped Helsa up from the floor and led her away from the crowd as attention turned away from the princess and the saint and towards the ruler of Hell. As the king reached the bottom of the steps, the demon approached the ruler. "Frederick. I'm glad you got around to coming," Lucifer announced, glad to see the father of his daughter's ex-boyfriend. "And Bethesda too. Have you guys tried the Beelzebus?" Lucifer asked, motioning to a massive fountain of liquor that he had commissioned for his big event. "Not yet," the eldritch-looking demon replied with a widening smile. Naruto decided to let Lucifer handle whatever discourse came from the brief confirmation and led Charlie outside to one of the balconies that overlooked a massive garden filled with plants native to Hell. "I can't believe I did that," Charlie bemoaned, resting her forehead against the railing, as before she even gave her big announcement, she'd already made a fool of herself. "How are people supposed to take the hotel seriously when the person running it can't even control her own temper?" she muttered, more to herself but loud enough for Naruto to hear. Naruto rubbed her back, trying to soothe Charlie. "It's okay, Charlie, we all make mistakes," he told her gently. "It's not okay." Charlie yelled back at him, looking at him with tears in her eyes. "What if I had hurt you?" she asked, her demonic features once again slipping out. Naruto didn't know which form was her real form, but it seemed that when her emotions ran high, she might be prone to slipping into it. "You're doing so much to help me, and yet all I have given you in return was a punch." "I never asked for anything in return, just that you keep your heart in the right place," he replied, patting her head, getting a blush from the blonde demon. Looking at Naruto's eyes for the first time since she attacked him, she saw nothing but kindness in his pools of blue. "Is this what a human who went to heaven is like?" she thought to herself. The pure kindness in his heart. The lack of hatred even for those who attacked him. He felt so comfortable to be around, like a warm blanket that wrapped around her. He was almost what she heard some sinners describe the sun like. "Charlie, we all make mistakes. I've lashed out against some of the people I care for the most while I was alive. I almost killed one while trying to become stronger. It's not the mistakes we made in the past that define us, but how we grow and change to become better than we were before," Naruto told her, placing a hand on her head. Naruto felt her arms wrap around his body, hugging him tightly. "Thanks," she said, as he returned the hug, holding her close. The two took a moment to enjoy each other's presence, feeling comfortable in each other's arms, before they were interrupted by someone clearing their voice. Looking over, they saw Lucifer standing there watching, a massive grin on the fallen angel's face, despite the dangerous glint in his eyes. "Getting pretty close to my daughter, aren't you, funk face?" he asked as the two parted. His eyes glowed with mischief as he walked up to his fellow blonde. Charlie whined, embarrassed of what her father was insinuating was going on between her and Naruto. It's not like that, she complained, not wanting her father to get the wrong idea about her. Oh relax, I don't care if you have one lover or 1,000, you're my daughter after all, Lucifer said twirling his cane as he approached Naruto. I'd prefer it wasn't you, however, he said looking Naruto in the eyes. Naruto just raised an eyebrow and flicked Lucifer in the forehead in a manner similar to how Tsunade would in the past, sending the former angel reeling from the force behind the simple act. He knew that the ruler of hell would be able to take the blow without getting too hard, so he didn't hold back his power. That'll teach you to be rude to your guest, Naruto replied with a small smile. Lucifer held his head as he felt like he'd taken a bullet to the brain. That hurt jackass. Lucifer yelled at him. Then don't assume I'm trying to seduce your daughter. Naruto yelled back at him. Oh? You don't think she's worth seducing? Lucifer asked with narrowed eyes. What? Of course, she is, but that's not why I'm here, Naruto replied to the Queen of Hell, much to Charlie's further embarrassment, as her normally white face grew increasingly red as her parents teased them about the nature of their relationship. The fact that Naruto said that she was worth seducing didn't exactly help in that matter. So you are interested? Lucifer laughed. Boy, don't put words in my mouth. Naruto yelled, holding up a fist covered in white flames, ready to pummel his eon's old adversary. Or what? Lucifer asked as the two glared at one another, their foreheads pressed against one another, sparks flying between their eyes. Naruto's expression softened as he saw the state that his friend was in. Her face flushing red from the turn that the conversation had taken. Sorry Charlie, I guess we got a bit carried away, Naruto mentioned with a nervous chuckle. I guess we call it even, she replied as she couldn't blame him when she'd done the same with Helsa before. Lucifer scoffed childishly, but Naruto couldn't help but sense some negativity coming from the King of Hell. Charlie, why don't you go take a moment to clean yourself up? The blonde fallen angel asked, wanting to talk to Naruto for a moment without his daughter around. Naruto sighed as he looked at Lucifer, who looked a bit annoyed to be left with the blonde. Wanna get some Beelzebus? Naruto asked, trying to break the ice. Shock, you're the one who asked, Foxface, Lucifer replied, motioning for a server to bring them something to drink. But I guess I could spare a moment, he said smugly. Naruto rolled his eyes, like I didn't drink when I was Hokage, the blonde replied as the small Sever imp brought over 2 glasses filled with a glowing yellow liquid. As Naruto picked it up, a pulse of holy energy caused the drink to ripple, destroying the hellish properties of the drink. Plenty of things to drink too, he mentioned. Lucifer rolled his eyes as he sipped some of the glowing drink. Those were the days, weren't they? He commented with a crooked smile as he turned and leaned over the railing. Me causing havoc up on Earth and you showing a loud glowy and stuff trying to stop me, Lucifer reminisced. It was before his duties in hell started to pile up. Back then he had the old King of Hell to help him before he was killed when some jackass summoned him to the mortal world and something killed him. Stupid aliens. Naruto chuckled as he took a sip of his purified Beelzebus. Between you and the godlike aliens, I don't know which was more annoying, he jabbed at the fallen angel. His time as Hokage had been filled with encounters with the Otsutsuki clan, who had gained an interest in Earth for whatever reason. Oh come on. I may have made some people sin, but at least I never tried to actually destroy the world. Lucifer yelled at the saint. While he'd tried and corrupt humans plenty of times over the years, it was never to the level of mass slaughter that the Otsutsuki would have brought down. That's fair, Naruto replied as he took a sip of the Beelzebus. It wasn't exactly his favorite thing to drink, but he knew that it was rare for alcohol to have a real effect on demons. So, you have anyone up in heaven, Funkface? I remember you had a wife back on Earth, some brats as well, Lucifer asked, his body a bit tense when talking about the subject of romance. Hinata, like many other shinobi, was sent to hell when she died. Part of our lives as shinobi eventually led to her killing someone, he replied, knowing that killing another was often a one-way ticket to hell. Given their line of work, very few ever made it to heaven. Lucifer put 2 and 2 together and let out a sigh. Nearly every sinner from that time had been killed off during an extermination at some point. That blows, Lucifer said in response, feeling a tiny bit bad for his fellow blonde. He hated that he felt even the slightest amount of sympathy for the blonde, but couldn't imagine losing someone he loved to the exorcists. The final death. Do you hate them? The exorcists and Adam? He asked, wondering if the man had any hatred for the beings who had killed those he loved in hell. Naruto closed his eyes. No, he replied, much to Lucifer's surprise. They were only doing their job, Naruto told Lucifer, not holding any ill will towards the angels that came down and purged the sinners of hell to make room for more. They're just a part of the cycle of hell. All hating the will do is drag me down, he stated, drinking the rest of his Beelzebus. Lucifer let out a howling laugh at the admission that Naruto didn't hate the very beings who purged his friends and family from hell. I give it to you acid, you're a better person than I'll ever be, the fallen angel stated, knowing that if their positions had been reversed, he'd hunt down every exorcist without a shred of mercy. I've seen what hatred does to people, Naruto said, recalling all the people he had met in life who had been consumed by hatred. In the end, it brought them only sadness and death for themselves and others. But I believe in humanity's ability to be better if given a proper chance. So, I know that at least some sinner demons will be able to redeem themselves, he claimed firmly. And what makes you think that's even possible? Lucifer questioned, wanting to know why Naruto thought that anyone could realistically ascend up heaven. You, Naruto said simply, pointing at the blonde ruler. Me? Lucifer asked, confused as to what the blonde meant. You fell from heaven, so if someone could fall maybe it works both ways, Naruto pointed out with a smirk. It seemed to infuriate Lucifer. Lucifer clicked his teeth. You know, you and Charlie are a lot alike. Really? Naruto asked. Yeah, both of you give me migraines, Lucifer grumbled. Naruto gave Lucifer a deadpan look, like you're one to talk to. I have to remind you of the panda incident. Naruto asked, causing the King of Hell's face to go red. Never bring that up again. He yelled at Naruto, eyes glowing like hot coals. My, what's all this commotion? A new voice joined the conversation as a demon Naruto had never met before but recognized based on his appearance alone. The blue flame-like hair, the three faces, and the roaster-like tail along with an expensive-looking outfit that hugged his body tightly. Naruto knew that it was none other than Asmodeus, the king of lust. Well, if it isn't the king of darkness himself and the one and only Saint Naruto. Quite the show before with a young princess. I see she got you all fired up, he joked as Naruto was covered in white energy that resembled flames when he stopped Charlie. Copperfield. I'm not into molesting my friends or anyone for that matter, Naruto pointed out, rolling his eyes at the demon. He knew that the demon was a real big shot in the lust ring of hell. Oh really? The two of you seemed quite close back then, is it outside of possibility? I'm a bit suspicious, don't you think, my lord? Asmodeus asked curiously, joining the two but keeping a set of eyes on the blonde saint. I'd rather not talk about it, Lucifer replied, glaring at Naruto. Well, Mammon wanted you to know if you join us for a round, the lustful demon said, a frown on his face as neither blonde seemed to want to entertain his suggestive teasing. Ugh, Lucifer groaned as he didn't want to talk to the owner of the knockoff version of his park. But he knew that he couldn't just ignore his other guest, plus he could use a shot. Might as well, he said as he walked off back towards the main party. Between you and me, Ozzy said, leaning down to Naruto, Jiraiya was quite the customer of mine back in the day. It was a sad day when he was purged, the demon mentioned, recalling the amount of money that the old toad demon had spent at his establishments in the Pride Ring during his time in hell. He was by far one of his best customers. He even asked Lucifer for special permission to allow him into the lust ring. If you ever need a good place for a steamy date, the prominent demon started, pulling out a business card and handing it to Naruto, give Ozzy's a call. I promise not to leave you unsatisfied, he said with a smirk before walking after Lucifer. Naruto looked at the card in his hand. It was a VIP membership to what he assumed was a pretty famous club if it carried Asmodeus' name on it. He couldn't help but smile at the name on the card, Jiraiya, Naruto read out loud, running his finger over the engraving. He didn't know if he'd ever use it, but at the very least it would be a good memento of his old sensei. Left alone for the time being, he decided to wander about the party. Looking around, it seemed that almost all the other demons at Lucifer's party were engaged in a conversation or enjoying the buffet of strange foods and drugs provided by their lord, except the owl demon off to the side. He caught her glancing briefly at two other older avian demons who seemed to be in a constant argument. She not only looked irritated, but he could also feel the raw agitation coming from her. The owl demoness was wearing an old-fashioned ball gown with a light purple top with golden decors that left her shoulders and the upper part of her cleavage exposed, and a wide skirt decorated in an ever-changing cosmic pattern. Over her shoulders was a glittering purple shawl that looked almost like it had constellations woven in. She wore pink elbow-length gloves and black heels, and as he got closer he noticed that she had a purple glittering choker and golden tiara on her head. Yo, Naruto called out to her, waving his hand in the air, catching the owlet's attention. The woman looked a bit apprehensive at his arrival, recognizing him as the topic of conversation among many of the nobility of hell at the party. Glancing at his halo, she knew that compared to any sinner demons at the party, she had little to worry about, given her being a natural-born member of the Gosha family. Heaven wasn't particularly interested in killing off actual demons like her and her family. What do you want? She asked, clearly not in the best of moods if her scowl was anything to go off from. In fact, her entire body language showed that she was extremely upset about something. Wanted to make sure you were alright, you look into Naruto started, wanting to make sure she knew that he wasn't here with malicious intentions. Pissed off? I am, she scoffed. Just a tiny bit, Naruto replied casually before holding his hand out to her to shake. Naruto Uzumaki, he introduced, hoping to break the ice a bit. The avian demon stared at the extended hand for a moment before sighing and shaking it. She almost expected his touch to burn, but found it was like shaking any other demon's hand. "Octavia," she replied before crossing her arms and leaning against a pillar, glancing over at the two other owl demons arguing, completely ignorant of who her daughter was currently with what was largely considered the most dangerous person at the party. She'd heard a few things from her father about the blonde saint before her. A human from an age before modern humans. When humans were a true force to be reckoned with and could even reshape the world with their energy. That power seemed to follow them in death, allowing them to use all sorts of abilities post despite being dead. However, he didn't seem outwardly dangerous despite the power he apparently held. "A pleasure to meet you," Naruto responded, giving her a fox-like grin. Letting go of her hand, he sat on the railing next to her. "I never realized just how many high-class demons existed in hell," he mentioned, looking at the wide array of creatures scattered across the area. He knew that some were natural-born demons, while others were former humans that were turned into demons after death. "More like pompous assets," she corrected, rolling her eyes. She didn't exactly have the best opinion of the other demons in the upper echelon of hell. Crossing her arms, she sighed, looking down at her dress bitterly. "Guessing you're not one for formal events?" Naruto asked, putting the pieces together and figuring that the reason she was so upset was that she had been dragged and put in a dress by her family. "To be honest, I'm only here because Charlie asked me to be here for her. Lucifer only invited me to show off," Naruto told her. "Typical," she scoffed, not surprised that the ruler of hell would have tried to show off to the blonde from heaven. Looking over at her parents, she saw her father walk away, a hurt look clear on his face, while her mother turned to a group of female demons and began to laugh and insult her father. While they attempted to hide how dysfunctional their relationship was from her, as she grew older, she started to see more and more how horrid they were to one another, yet she still couldn't help but want a happy family as she remembered. "No offense, but your mom doesn't seem like the nicest demon," Naruto mentioned, not liking the way she treated her husband. Sure, it was almost a certainty that the owl demon had done horrid things to humanity at some point in his extended life, but he didn't enjoy seeing someone be mocked so viciously. "Don't talk about my mom like that." Octavia snapped at him, however, seeing him raise his hands defensively, she sighed and tried to pull her tiara down to cover her eyes, almost as if she had been wearing a hood. She wished she was. "Sorry, but since you're here you might as well make the best of it, right? Wanna grab a drink or get some food?" he asked, figuring that maybe distracting her from her parents would do her some good. Octavia looked back at her mother as she continued to berate her father before sighing in resignation. "Sure, why not," she muttered, figuring that talking to the saint was better than watching her family tear itself apart from the shadows. "I could use a stiff drink right now," she said as the two looked around and found a table outside, away from the commotion of the party. "I'll send a clone to grab our drinks, anything you prefer?" Naruto asked as a copy of himself appeared next to him, much to Octavia's surprise. "Whoa," she muttered, hawking the clone's cheek to make sure that it was real and not just an illusion. "Can all saints do this?" Octavia asked the blonde as the clone gave her a deadpan look at her excessive probing. "Destiny granted, Hashirama has his own methods," Naruto mentioned as he knew that the previous incarnation of Asura could make clones using his wood-style jutsu. "Super Gramps probably can too," he muttered as he figured that the old sage of six paths would be able to use shadow clones as well if he put the time into learning the jutsu. "That's kinda cool," Octavia commented before getting back to the question at hand. "I'll take a Wrath Ring iced tea," she told the clone of the saint, who already knew what his creator wanted, before going off to the bar to get the beverages. Looking back at the party, she noticed that no one seemed to be paying them any mind. Taking a deep breath, she slumped against her seat, finally able to relax outside of the eye of the demon nobility. "Odd, I hate stuffy parties like these," Naruto stated as despite the depravity going on, there was still an air of dignity that was displayed by the many guests. Sure, they were sinful, but they were still high class. "Tell me about it, is it the same in heaven?" she asked curiously, wondering how it was on the other side of the afterlife. "Worse," the blonde lamented. Octavia gagged at the thought of being in a world where everyone was perfect and elegant like her mother tried to present. "So would you leave heaven?" she asked, wondering just what he was doing down here when he clearly had his own responsibilities in heaven given the title. Naruto chuckled and scratched the back of his head. "Well, I can't tell you the exact reason just yet, but I guess you can say I made a bet on Charlie, and God took me up on it, well, and with Lucifer too," he told her, not wanting to spoil Charlie's big reveal, but figured that he could tell Octavia about his own personal situation. "You made a deal with both God and Lucifer?" Octavia questioned in both horror and awe at the guts it must have taken to walk up to two of the most powerful beings in the world and strike up a deal. "Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. Having your soul in jeopardy between the rulers of heaven and hell isn't the best situation to be in," Naruto replied, knowing that it had been a risky move on his part. But I believe in Charlie's dream and I feel like she can do a lot of good in hell with the right help, he explained to her. I mean, anything that could make this dumpster fire of a place better would be welcomed, she grumbled, hating how things were currently going in her life. So, what did you do when you were alive? Naruto grinned widely. I was a ninja. He answered happily. Octavia's eyes widened at the revelation. Wait, like an assassin? She asked, having a basic understanding of what ninjas were from the many books she'd read. Well, that was sometimes part of the job. But we also did other types of missions, escorting or spying. We also sometimes just fought in the open if the situation ever called for it, Naruto explained to her, not wanting her to think that his entire life he spent killing people. Sure, he had to pull the trigger a few times here and there, but it wasn't his go-to solution. That's kinda badass, Octavia complimented, seeing the man in a new light. She'd assumed that he was some prime and proper angel with some extra firepower, but the most he talked the more interesting he was compared to other beings. He wasn't a complete jackass like most in hell, but he broke the idea of what she thought someone from heaven would be like. Thanks, Naruto exclaimed before he clone came and dropped off the 2 drinks for them before disappearing into a puff of smoke. So where do they go when they vanish? The Gosha heiress asked, wondering what exactly happened to the clones once they vanished. They seemed to display emotions and everything, so it was a bit strange to see a physical person just disappear. Oh, that's easy, they just return back into me. They're made completely from my chakra, so they know everything I know when they were made, and when they dispel and their energy comes back into me, I learn everything they learned, he told her, figuring it was as good of an explanation as possible. He didn't really think the process was that complicated. But can they become their own person? She asked, questioning if these clones could potentially gain their own sentience, since they had emotions from their originator and could experience things separate from the original Naruto until they were popped. Thinking about it for a moment, Naruto remembered one time when his clones turned against him on that ship before the war. I guess it's possible sometimes, but in the end, once they run out of energy they return to me anyways, Naruto replied, figuring that it had happened once before so it could happen again, but since then it hadn't happened. Damn, that's kinda funked up, don't you think? Octavia asked, feeling bad for the clones that had gained their own personality. Naruto didn't really know what to say about that. Yeah, I guess it kinda sucks, but their memories live on in me afterward, he said, hoping that it would make things a bit less morbid. I guess, Octavia muttered. So, what are some things you like? He asked, figuring that she had some hobbies outside of just being dragged to parties by her parents, which were something that he was certain she hated. Things I like? Octavia asked with a raised eyebrow, not used to people asking what she liked to do. Thinking about it for a second she shrugged, I guess I like stuff like books and astrology. Books? Naruto perked up. Have you read any books by Jiraiya? Octavia became flustered at the mention of the name of the once legendary shinobi, her face tinted slightly pink. She started before looking away from the blonde. I never heard of him, she muttered, her feather ruffled by the heat coming from her face. Shame, he was my sensei, you know, the blonde told her. I still have the books he wrote back when we traveled together, he told the elite. Octavia's eyes went wide. The sacred texts? She asked and shouted in shock. Naruto stared at her for a moment with a raised eyebrow. For a moment, the sacred what? Octavia's mask-like face turned crimson at what she had just blurted out in front of what was still basically a stranger. Obviously, the blonde knew exactly who Jiraiya was and what kind of books he wrote, having been his student in the past. While she never met the man, she'd been able to read many of his books over the years. They're the books he wrote while he was alive. He once described them as his best work, she explained. They're cool, I guess, she shrugged, trying to play it off. And they're hard to find? Naruto asked, remembering that Jiraiya's books had been sold in every bookstore in the world. Even in countries that didn't use chakra, they still had his books in stock. They're impossible to find. The only copies on Hell are owned by Asmodeus and Lucifer, and neither have the full collection, the Gosha heiress told the student of the renowned smut author. She stopped when she realized that she had basically admitted to reading smut. I mainly read his tales of books. Like the tale of Jiraiya the Gallant, Nagato the Pained, Conan the Angel, Yahiko the Dawn, Minato the Flash, and Menma the Hero, she told him, not wanting the saint to think that she read Jiraiya's more perverted books. Naruto smiled at the thought that his teacher had written books about all his students while in hell. I wonder who Menma is. He muttered. He didn't remember Jiraiya ever talking about having a student named Menma, and the only Menma he ever met was the fake version of him in Game Jutsu World Sakura, and he had been trapped in for a bit. He also felt a bit insulted that Jiraiya never wrote a book about him. Menma was his last student before he died. He was the person he felt would save the world and even fought the main character of Nagato the Pained after he killed him, Octavia explained, much to Naruto's confusion before it clicked. Lucifer had been petty and refused to let Jiraiya publish a book about him, so instead Jiraiya replaced his name with Menma, another ramen topping. Do you think I could borrow the tale of Menma the Hope? Naruto asked, wanting to know what his sensei had written about him. Well, maybe if you let me borrow some of the sacred texts. Naruto bit his lip as he didn't know how much he wanted to trust a demon with some of the last memories he had of his godfather. On one hand, he hadn't read those things in ages, keeping them safe in a seal, but they also meant so much to him. Closing his eyes, he wondered what Jiraiya would tell if he asked him what to do in this situation. Take that sexy demon owl to town, brat. He could hear him shout, giving him 2 thumbs up. His eyebrow twitched as he knew that the first thing that would come out of his sensei's mouth would be an encouragement to go and do something perverted. But Naruto knew that Jiraiya would want his works to be enjoyed as much as possible. Jiraiya wanted people to trust one another and look past their differences to achieve world peace. Looking at the drink his clone had brought him, Naruto brought the drink up and took a sip before sighing. I'll let you borrow them one at a time, and you have to return the previous one before I give you the next one. Those books may be a bit perverted, but they still mean the world to me, he said, remembering the fond times he had with the old pervert. Deal, she said, still a bit shocked by how the encounter had gone. She never expected the man everyone was walking about to be the student of one of the most legendary authors in the history of hell. She smoothed over some of her feathers as she had gotten a bit too excited talking about the old books her father had given her as a child. It had been one of the first gifts he'd given her before her home life went to shit, so Jiraiya's writing always brought her back to better times. So why do you want to read the tale of Menma specifically? Octavia asked, wondering what made that one so special, given that Naruto didn't seem to know who Menma was despite being trained by Jiraiya. Well, I was the one who defeated Nagato, or Pain as he called himself back then, so I think Menma is just a substitute for me, Naruto replied. No funking way, Octavia replied, realizing that he seemed to share many similarities to the hero of the book and the final protagonist of the series, Menma's father Minato, who had spiky blonde hair and blue eyes. I mean, that's cool, she said, trying to rein in her excitement. It was a bit surreal to her, meeting the hero straight from a book she'd read when she was young. And to think that the guy who would transform into a woman to sneak into their bathhouses would one day become a saint. She knew a fair bit about the shinobi from the book she read, along with some of the records that her father kept from those ancient times. They seemed rather barbaric, so gaining a rather important position in heaven was exceptionally rare. Naruto smiled as he leaned back and looked back at Lucifer. I'd place my money that the reason the old pervy sage didn't use my name was that the funkwid who rules this place didn't like me. He chuckled at how petty the ruler of hell was. Right, you and the asshole in chief fought before, Octavia remembered, having read a book in her house, recounting the times that Lucifer had gone to Earth, only to return looking like he tried to storm heaven again. My dad said when you two sunk Atlantis, it was the greatest fight of the century, she told the blonde, recalling the fond times when her father had more time for her and told her stories of the past. Wow, shocked no one jumped in to help the bastard, he stated in slight shock, figuring that if the demons had been watching, someone would have been willing to help out their leader. But maybe that was him giving them too much credit. Please, every demon here was salivating at the chance to claim his throne if he died, Octavia replied, knowing that whenever Naruto and Lucifer fought, the demon lords were itching to claim his seat at the head of the table the moment Naruto struck him down. But in the end, the two would decide to end the fight before the other could land a killing blow. Naruto frowned, feeling a bit bad for the eccentric fallen angel. Must be hard having friends you can trust when you know that a majority of them want to see you die to claim your position on the totem pole. What about you? He asked, wondering where she fell in the whole system. I just want to be left alone and do my own thing, she told him, not really wanting anything to do with the royal lifestyle her parents lived. Sure, she didn't mind being rich, but not when her parents were always at each other's throats. Though, if I had the chance, I'd probably remodel the whole place, Octavia mentioned, and he couldn't help but agree. Sure, there were parts of hell that were just like Earth, but several areas were just themed after their sin to an extreme, with the exception of Pride, which seemed like a huge melting pot of crime, given how all sinners were placed here. No one should have their life determined by someone else, Naruto stated, getting a small smile from the owl demon. Naruto. They heard Charlie call out as she walked through the party looking for her escort. She seemed to have gotten a bit cleaned up after the confrontation with her ex's sister. Her father had told her that he would be gathering everyone so she could make her announcement to the crowd of demons, so she figured she'd find the blonde as soon as she could. Well, looks like it's time for Charlie's big announcement, Naruto mentioned as the blonde demon spotted him sitting with Octavia and rushed over to them with a wide smile. She seems cheerful, Octavia said, looking a bit put off by how bright the princess of hell seemed. She is, but she has a good heart, Naruto replied as he got up with a sigh. Wish us luck. Not confident? Octavia asked. In her? Yes. In the rest of the crowd, hell no, Naruto replied as he went to meet Charlie halfway. Octavia shrugged and stood up as well, figuring she should probably get back to her parents before Lucifer called for everyone to gather to listen to whatever Charlie had to announce. "Well, good luck then Naruto," she said before handing him a piece of paper. "My number, so we can meet up to swap books," the elite told him before walking away, glazing at Charlie as they passed before going to where her father was. "Was that Stola's daughter?" Charlie asked, breathing a bit heavy as she caught her breath after running to them. She'd never met the demoness, but she knew she was a member of the Gosha family. "Didn't know you guys were friends," she muttered. "We just met, turns out she likes my godfather's books," the blonde responded honestly as Lucifer shouted to get everyone's attention. The sign that it was almost time for them to present Charlie's idea to the rest of the upper echelon of hell. "Got your song ready?" Charlie adjusted her suit and gave him a confident smile. "Of course I do. A musical number is sure to win over the crowd," she told the saint, excited that he seemed to now be on board about her presenting the whole thing in the form of a song instead of a plain speech. It felt like a rock hit Naruto's stomach as he realized that Charlie was serious about presenting her plan to reform sinners in the form of a performance. Charlie, I don't have to sing, do I?" he asked, not sure if he'd be able to remember a whole song in a few minutes while Lucifer addressed everyone. "Nope, just leave it all to me," Charlie told him, walking confidently towards the stage Lucifer was on. Walking behind her, he could feel the eyes of each and every one demon at the party looking at them as they joined the king of hell on the stage. "Don't funk it up," the suited demon whispered to his daughter before moving to walk off stage, only to trip as something caught his foot. "Funk," Lucifer cursed when he stumbled off the stage. Picking himself up, he glared at Naruto who was already looking at him from the corner of his eyes with golden orange eyes. Taking up the mic, Charlie looked out over the crowd of demons. The air was relatively tense as many seemed to rather go back to partying than listen to whatever she had to say to them. "Hi everyone, thank you for coming out today," she said, trying to get the crowd to loosen up. "Just get on with it. I got a chocolate-covered dildo waiting for me," one of the demons from the lust ring shouted at Charlie. "Haha, sorry to keep you," she replied, feeling her nerves starting to get the best of her, but she felt Naruto's hand on her shoulder. Looking back at him, she caught his bright smile before looking at everyone. "I have an announcement to make. It's something that I feel will help out hell for centuries to come. You see, like many of you, I was born in hell. And frankly, I am sick and tired of losing so many souls during exterminations, like the one coming up soon. So, I had an idea to rehabilitate sinners and help them go to heaven," she said before taking a deep breath to start her song, only for a tomato to be lodged into her mouth. "Rehabilitate sinners, what a stupid idea. Is there even any proof that this works? Like anyone would waste their time with this. What a loser." White energy wrapped around Charlie's body, protecting her from the assault of food and objects being hurled at her. Looking at Lucifer, he saw the ruler of hell just grinning up as she was publicly humiliated by demons who wouldn't even let her finish telling them her plan. Her face twisted as she was soundly rejected by her peers, and her father seemed to be taking delight in it. Naruto for his part couldn't help but feel bad for his fellow blonde. The crushed look on her face told him everything he needed to know about how she was feeling right now. Her passion project, her dream for a better hell, was being laughed at and torn apart by the very people she sought help from to make their home better. "Charlie, don't turn around," Naruto said as he placed his hands on her shoulders. Charlie turned her head to look back at him, but he caught her by the chin and made her look back at the crowd. "I'm here for you. Don't let them stop you from saying what you want to say," he told the princess as he unleashed a wave of power that washed over the crowd, his shadow growing over the audience, as many recoiled at the sight behind Charlie. "Believe in yourself, Charlie, and if you can't, then believe in me. Believe in the Naruto that believes in you," he told her, his voice now having a slightly deeper tone. "So sing if you want to, shout if you need to," Naruto whispered to her. She could feel him radiating a warmth seldom found in hell. Like a warm hug from the world's softest blanket or bathing in the rays of the sun. Looking at the now apprehensive looks on the demons' faces including her father who had stood up as if ready to fight if needed, she could only assume that Naruto had taken his true form behind her. It made sense to her now. If a sinner went to hell and became a demon, then an innocent soul that went to heaven might become an angel and would have a true form as well. Taking a deep breath she started to sing. "In a land of fire and brimstone, where demons roam and call it home, there's a place that's quite unique, where lost souls come to find relief. The Happy Hotel, it's a haven for demons. A place to rest their wicked souls. A chance to turn their lives around. And make some new goals." Naruto grinned as she started to display her amazing singing voice. Looking back at him, she gave him a wide smile at his angelic form and moved the mic toward his face. His eyes widened as he didn't really want her to see his full form, but she didn't seem put off by it. He looked almost like a cross between himself and his Sage of Six Paths Sage mode and Kurama, having gained 9 long white tails and long rabbit-like ears like Kurama. From his back, 2 large wings sprouted with 9 black orbs floating in a circle behind them. It's run by a kind-hearted princess. And she's here to impress. Her goals are noble. She'll help out the locals. The blonde sang, not really confident in his choice of lyrics, but the smile it earned him from Charlie was more than worth it. Some may think it's all a scam. But those who stay, they know the plan. The happy hotel is where they find the peace of mind they've left behind. She continued looking back at the audience who fell quiet as the two sang. The happy hotel, it's a haven for demons. A place to rest their wicked souls. A chance to turn their lives around. And meet their new goals. So if you're a demon feeling lost. And all your hopes and dreams are tossed. Come to the happy hotel and see the person you were meant to be. As the song came to a close, Charlie hugged Naruto, grateful for helping her keep her cool and sing her song. The two walked off the stage while the crowd of demons slowly returned to their sinful activities. However, he could faintly hear Rosie clapping in the back. Looked back at the cannibalistic demon and waved, grateful that at least one demon there enjoyed the song. Octavia on the other hand just watched the stage where the blonde she had just been talking to had put the rest of the demon world in their place. She had ingrained the sight into her memory. It was hard to imagine something looking so angelic and monstrous at the same time. But beyond all that was how he didn't take shit from the other demons. She had to respect that. Well, that could have gone better, Charlie sighed as she sat next to Naruto on their limo ride back to the hotel. They had decided to leave a bit early, given that they were getting strange looks from the other demons, many of whom mocked their song. Naruto rolled his eyes and poured 2 glasses of champagne, handing one to Charlie. We did the best we could. Let's face it, the chances of any of them openly showing support for your project were slim at best, Naruto told her honestly. Besides, the majority of the demons there weren't even our clientele, since most were natural-born demons or so high on the totem pole that leaving hell would mean giving up all the authority they have and don't even really care about the masses of hell, he mentioned to her, trying to make things a bit better. I know, she sighed, looking at the bubbling drink, not sure if she should even drink it. But still, it would be nice to have at least someone say it's a good idea. And be criticized by the rest of the demons there. If any actually agree with you, you're more likely to get a response from them in private. But who knows, maybe the announcement to the general public will go better. Naruto replied, recalling that Charlie had been calling local news stations day and night to let her be on. It was still shocking how people didn't respect the ruling family despite their power. Oh right. I got an interview with Katie Killjoy after the extermination, Charlie remembered. Apparently, one of their guests had gotten preoccupied and his spot had opened up. I'll never understand how hell can bounce back so fast after having so much death in a short amount of time, Naruto muttered, sipping his drink. Looks like we're almost home, the male blonde announced. Charlie took his hand and smiled gratefully at him. Thanks for coming today, Naruto. It means the world to have your supper, muff. The demoness started before the limo pulled in front of the hotel sharply, throwing Charlie into Naruto's arms. The eyes went wide as demonic and angelic lips met, Charlie's hands now on his chest as she had tried to keep herself from crashing into him, while his arms were wrapped around her, since he had tried to keep her from hitting her head. Their faces felt warm as they stared into each other's eyes in pure shock, before Charlie's eyes started to slowly close as she subconsciously leaned into it. As they processed what was going on, the car door was opened by the chauffeur. Slowly glancing over from the corner of their eyes, they saw Vaggie at the hotel entrance with Angel. Her eyes were wide before narrowing in a furious glare. Angel seemed to barely be able to contain his giggles at seeing Vaggie flying into a rage. Maldito hijo de puta. She roared, her lone eye burning. Her teeth clenched as she wanted nothing more than to try and harpoon the saint, whose lips were currently pressed against her girlfriend's. Instead, she turned on her heel and stormed inside the hotel, not wanting to let her anger get the best of her and put her in a position where Naruto would fight back. She was confident in her abilities but not confident enough to fight someone who had fought Lucifer hundreds of times throughout history. Angel crackled, damn, you just must really enjoy the feel of each other's lips. He teased as in their shock, they had yet to take any steps to end their kiss. The two pulled away, faces red as they got out of the car. I should go talk to Vaggie, Charlie said before rushing off to go confront her hopefully still girlfriend, mind still replaying the last few moments, her fingers touching her lips as she could still take some of the champagne Naruto had been drinking. You're welcome. The driver called out before leaving him and Angel. Damn, hooking up with the boss. Maybe I misjudged you, Blondie, Angel said, elbowing Naruto in the side with a wide grin on his face. Maybe you'd let me have a taste too. He asked, figuring he'd take another shot at the hunk. A sigh slipped through Naruto's lips as he hoped that this didn't affect Charlie and Vaggie too much. As he walked into the hotel, his phone rang in his pocket, picking it up, his face soured at the hissing voice on the other side. Oh, it's you, the blonde replied. Angel blinked as he had never seen Naruto look so serious before. The former shinobi seemed to forget about the rest of the world around him as he argued with whoever was on the other side of the line. "Everything okay, Stained Abs?" The spider demon asked, wondering who could get the normally happy blonde so irritated. "Just an old friend," Naruto muttered as he walked off to whoever had called him. "But Charlie and Baggy." "Baggy comes on, it was just an accident from the driver's recklessness." Charlie tried to reason with her girlfriend, who had been set off by her and Naruto's kiss. She had tried her best to bury feelings of jealousy after finding out how much Naruto had put on the line to come help Charlie, but she had a limit and a rather quick trigger. Baggy spun around and stomped up to Charlie's face. "It wasn't just the kiss, Charlie. It's everything else. Ever since he arrived, you've gotten closer and closer to him every day. You spend most of the day with him around the hotel. You barely even considered bringing me to your father's event." She yelled at the princess. "Dad said you couldn't go be. Why Padre's peller poor me." She bit back at the princess before her face softened. "It feels like you're prioritizing him over me and I'm being left behind while you two move ahead with the hotel," Baggy told Charlie, rubbing her arm. The more time that passed in the weeks since Naruto arrived, the less important she felt. She was the hotel's manager, yet her role seemed ever smaller compared to the blonde juggernaut. "Baggy, you know I love you," Charlie said, trying to hug the one-eyed demon, but she turned away. "I know you do, but do you? I think you might be starting to like him too, Charlie," Baggy admitted. She'd admit that Naruto was conventionally handsome, looking in his early 20s, plus he had a silver tongue. Most importantly of all, he wholeheartedly agreed with Charlie's goals. Something even she struggled to do. Charlie's paused for a moment. "You really think that?" She asked slowly as she couldn't help but be a bit pissed off that her girlfriend was questioning her loyalty. She didn't need this now after the humiliation she had suffered back at the party between her confrontation with Helsa and the complete disaster of her announcement. "Look, I think we're both exhausted, maybe we should go to bed for now," Charlie offered, figuring that a good night's sleep would do them well. "No, Charlie, I need an answer. Even if it hurts, I need to know the truth," Baggy replied firmly. She needed to know. She refused to be left in the dark while her beloved developed feelings for someone else. Charlie said, ready to deny it before thinking back at the time she had been spending with Naruto. How safe and assured he made her feel even when the odds were completely against her. "I don't know, I guess maybe," she answered, recalling their accidental kiss. The feeling of his warm lips pressing against hers and his arms holding her to keep her safe. It made her heart flutter. "But I know I love you," she reaffirmed, knowing that without a doubt she had strong feelings for her partner. Baggy looked at Charlie, but knew that her feelings were out of whack at the moment. She struggled with them back while she was alive, and now they were rearing their ugly head once again. She knew that she was being unreasonable. Had she not pushed the issue, they'd be two pairs of scissors against one another right now. But now she had pushed the envelope and made Charlie all but confess that she had blossoming feelings for the charismatic saint. "Damn it," she cursed, not at Charlie, but at herself. This kind of thinking had been part of the reason she ended up in hell. "I'm gonna get some air, hun," Baggy said, feeling like she needed some space and fresh air. "I'll sleep in another room tonight," she told Charlie before leaving the room. Charlie moaned as she felt something drive itself deep into her from behind, filling her deepest chamber to its fullest. Her face plastered against her bedboard, eyes half rolled back. Her nails dug into the fine fabric of the backboard, tearing it as her body rocked. Pleasure clouded her mind, letting her only think of the feeling of being penetrated. She felt a soft hand cup her right wrist, giving it a rough squeeze, despite the tenderness of his touch. She could feel her partner's fingers pinch her bright pink nipple. The mere act of him pulling on it sent lightning through her body, causing a small amount of fluid to squirt out from her lower lips. The inferno building up inside of her was palpable, yet her body felt ready to extinguish it with a biblical flood. Her breath hitched as she felt her partner hit a particularly weak spot inside her most sacred chamber. Naruto harder. Her back arched, her body convulsing as pleasure surged throughout her entire being. She felt a deep warmth feeling her as a weak smile spread over her face, her mind blinded by the brilliant pleasure filling her every cell. "Charlie." And like that it all came to an end, looking at the bedroom door, she saw Baggy standing there with a heartbroken look on her face. "I knew you loved him." Like that her dream and nightmare ended. Lucifer's daughter surged up in bed gasping for air, her heart racing as she frantically looked around the room, but found that she was the only one there. Taking a few deep breaths, she calmed her racing heart and recalled what had happened the previous day. She and Naruto had returned from her father's party where they shared an accidental kiss, right in front of Baggy. That had sent in motion an agreement between them that ended with Baggy leaving the room to take some space. Given that she was the only one in the room, it was safe to say she didn't come back last night. Then was her dream. She vividly remembered the whole thing up until the end. The feeling of each struck into her even if it had been in her mind. Looking at her phone, she saw a message from her limo driver saying that Angel and Vaggie late last night. Her eyes grew wide in horror before rushing out of bed. Naruto sat on top of the happy hotel as he watched the people of Hell work to protect themselves from the imminent extermination that would start within the hour. The same demons who a little while ago were living without a care for what their deeds would bring were now in a mad panic to keep themselves alive. He wondered if Hinata and the others went through something similar before the extermination that ended their existence came. No use in thinkings like that, Naruto said to himself as he decided to head back downstairs to the lobby to meet up with the other 3 hotel residents to go over their plan for the day. The lobby was empty when he arrived. Where did everyone go? Bingo. He asked before Charlie paced out of the elevator. He was expecting Charlie to greet him as usual, but instead, he found that Charlie was pacing back and forth, nearly pulling her blonde hair from her scalp in an anxious fit. "Charlie, what's wrong?" he asked, approaching the Princess of Hell. "I don't know where Vaggie is," Charlie yelled, snapping into her demon form before taking a deep breath to regain control. Sitting down on the lobby couch, she held her head as tears started to streak down her face. "She's not in the hotel?" Naruto asked, wide-eyed at the recklessness of the female sinner demon to leave her safe haven right before the deadliest day for all sinners in the year. Hell, it was the deadliest day for any creature outside in hell. Sharking her head, Charlie buried her head in her legs as her gentle sobs filled the space. Naruto sat beside her and placed a hand on her shoulder. Charlie froze for a second at his touch before relaxing a bit. "We had a fight after our kiss," she admitted, looking up at the blonde with puffy red eyes. "I haven't seen her since." "But it was an accident," Naruto replied, looking confused. Both knew that neither meant to do it, but their driver seemed to have other plans. "I know it was." But she started before looking to the side, unsure if it was a brilliant idea to tell Naruto the truth about why Vaggie had reacted so badly to their fight. She didn't want to say to him about some of the stuff Vaggie told her in private, but she felt like Naruto should know why. "Vaggie felt that I might, her face going red, might cheat on her with you." It took Naruto a second to register what Lucifer's daughter had told him. "So that's it," Naruto said, looking at the princess. Part of him wanted to call Vaggie an idiot, to get angry that the sinner would do something so stupid on this day. As someone who had kissed his fair share of women and Sasuke, he didn't see the issue, given that it didn't mean anything, just a bad fall. "I don't understand why she doesn't believe you," he said to himself, not getting why Vaggie was so insistent on the issue if Charlie had already told her the truth. Charlie didn't reply, knowing the real reason why Vaggie had stormed out. It wasn't that she didn't believe her that they hadn't been doing anything behind her back, but it was because she admitted that she might have feelings for the blonde in front of her. But she couldn't tell him that without telling him about her own budding feeling for him. That would just make another problem for them and could make it awkward for Naruto to work with her. "Is Angel here at least?" he asked, figuring that the spider demon would be here too. "No." The driver said that the two left together last night for Angel to show Vaggie how to have a good time. She shouted, furious that her client would whisk her girlfriend away to go gallivanting about Pentagram City and not return before the morning, and at Vaggie for going along with him knowing what was at stake. Naruto looked down at his phone as a message popped up. "Don't get in the way of the extermination. DCH Adam," he muttered, knowing that the leader of the exorcists wouldn't want him to mess up his mass execution of the denizens of hell. "I have to go find them," Charlie said, going for the door, ready to risk her life in order to save the two from meeting their ultimate end at the hands of the descending angels. However, a strong hand grasped her wrist, stopping her from leaving the safety of the large building. "Let go. I need to get them back here before the extermination begins." She protested for the male blonde to flick her on the forehead. "Don't be stupid, Charlie, if you get caught out there is a good chance you could end up dead with them," Naruto yelled at her. Charlie looked like she was going to protest his attempt to stop her from going out into the city, but saw that instead, he seemed to be going outside. "I'll get them back, Charlie," he told her as a plume of smoke covered his body, his outfit switching to one closer to what he wore during his time as Hokage. He wore a black button-up shirt with 2 blue stripes around the waist and dark blue pants. His shoes were replaced with shinobi sandals. Charlie watched a white high-collared cloak with a blue inside appeared on him. Down his back, the word Saint was written going down the cloak. "That's a promise from heaven," he added on, throwing back a confident grin before leaving the princess to wait for him to return with Angel and Vaggie. Walking down the streets of hell, he couldn't help remembering when he first arrived a few weeks ago. The sheer panic rippled throughout the city at the mere thought that an angel had descended down from heaven. Yet this wasn't potential for them, many had lived through dozens of exterminations, and some might have even lived through hundreds. He heard the sound of a grandfather clock going off. Looking at the massive tower that was the source of the sound, Charlie had explained to him how it kept track of what day it was and told the people of Pentagram City when the extermination would come. It was a looming symbol of doom for all the sinners who lived here. A symbol that even if hell was somehow your own personal paradise as a disgusting human, for one moment every year, you feared for your very soul. Feared that you'd get spotted by an angel and killed permanently. There were no second chances after that kind of death. And it wasn't meant metaphorically or rhetorically or poetically or theoretically or any other fancy way. Your soul was gone. Straight up. From above, he could see the exorcists flying from heaven down to hell. An army of angels who had one goal and one goal alone: kill as many demons as they could. Demons that had been left in the open tried to find anywhere to hide. Some even tried blending in among garbage to avoid being spotted. Those that couldn't would find themselves at the wrong end of an exorcist's weapon. Part of him felt a bit sick as he watched how brutal these angels were. No matter how much a demon begged, screamed, or cried, their life would be swiftly ended. Their blood and organs painted the streets of hell as the angels rampaged throughout the Pride Ring. He watched as one stabbed into a stubby demon's head before tearing it and his spine completely off his body. It was hard to block out the endless screams of agony. It only reaffirmed his desire to see Cherri succeed in her plan to rehabilitate sinners in order to put an end to the yearly purges. He figured that since it was Angel who had lead Vaggie around, he'd likely bring her to a place he knew well. Likely an area filled with bars and strip clubs. "Please. Help me." A demon cried out, dragging herself towards him. Half of her body had been torn off by an angel, leaving her entrails to leak out behind her. Naruto knew that he could heal quite a bit of damage on someone, even to the point of restoring an organ or two. But half a body? And without accidentally purifying them as well. That was asking a lot from him. "Sorry," Naruto said, crouching down in front of the female. "I wish I could save you, but I can give you a quick death," he told her before using a small Rasengan to blow her away. It was a painless death, one that he was certain many other demons here would have begged for at the moment. Rushing through the streets, he was glad to know that even if he was currently working in hell, his fellow citizens of heaven were not going to openly attack him and treat him like they were treating the demons. Stopping, he bent down and picked up a strand of white-pink fur. He could smell the perfume Angel used still coming from it. Hopefully, the tuft of spider fur meant that he was currently on the right path to finding them. At the very least, it meant that they had passed by here during their escapades. He could feel the eyes of some of the angels on him. They knew he wasn't a demon from the halo over his head, yet they were likely cautious of him being out while they were doing their job. More likely than not, they had been told that he was in hell and might interfere. He knew many would like a stab at him, but they wouldn't dare attack a high-ranking angel without a cause. Explosions sounded off in the distance, likely someone trying to fight back against the swarm of angels looking to slaughter them. It was in the direction down the road from where he found what he assumed was Angel's fur. "And where do you think you're going?" a voice said from above. His face soured as he looked back into the air at the angel talking down to him. "Didn't I tell you not to interfere with the extermination?" The angel smeared at the blonde. Looking up at the golden-winged angel, he was easy to distinguish from the rest of the exorcists by how white and gold cloak with an A in the middle, and that his face seemed to be real compared to the lead masks the others used. Between his two golden-tipped horns sat a golden halo, yet another difference between him and the others who wore white halos. "Quite bold of you to assume that, Adam," Naruto replied, crossing his arms as he noticed that some of the other angels had turned to give the two higher-ranking citizens of heaven their attention. "But I've never been one to lie, and let's face it, you wouldn't believe me even if I told you I wasn't going to do anything," Naruto mentioned, counting how many exorcists had gathered. "You obviously know about my mission, and currently one of my clients got stuck outside," he explained to the leader of the murderous angels. "Sounds like a you problem, so go away or we're going to have some problems, Naruto," Adam threatened, snapping his fingers as the small army of angels around him pulled out various weapons in an attempt to intimidate him into giving up and leaving. He could still hear bombs going off, meaning whoever was fighting still had yet to die. "Last chance," Naruto said, looking at the lead-wearing creatures who didn't relent. "Oh, this is going to be fun, get him," Adam ordered his army. Of course, he couldn't divert the whole group to fighting Naruto, he knew that they'd never win unless he himself joined the fight. But that wasn't the point. He just needed to distract Naruto until their time was up. Then that would be the end of the story. An exorcist launched at his face with a heavenly spear, but found only a kunai digging straight through its mask. Angelic blood splattered over Naruto's arm as he let go of the small dagger and grasped the spear in time to deflect a sword. "I'll be taking that," he said, stabbing the angel in the chest and taking his sword. Swinging back, he blocked a bullet, sending it through the electronic eye of one. Rushing at the gun-wielding angel, he leaped over one who tried to intercept him, cutting it in half with a swift stroke of the blade before decapitating another who go in his path. "This could be avoided, you know," Naruto mentioned, another swipe cutting the arm off the gun-slinging exorcist. His hand gripped an angel by the horn and tossed it into a group. His palm hit the pavement, and a pulse of chakra caused large spikes of the earth to erupt from the ground, killing them and parrying another sword. Sparks flew through the air as the two angelic weapons collided, but with a quick flick, he disarmed him and kicked the masked creature into a building. It was then that he heard a scream that sounded similar to Angel's, and the bombs went still. His blue eyes widened as he knew that he had to hurry or they'd be lost forever. Takra roared around him as he entered his true form. He couldn't afford to hold back as much if Angel and Vagir were in such danger. Angels filled the street before him, his eyes sharpened, pointing the blade at the gathered force. "Blame no one but yourselves," he growled before shooting forward like a streak of lightning. Slice, after cut, after slash. In the face of the Saint's wrath, none of them stood much of a chance. Their bodies littered the ground as he passed them. His sword was but a beam of light as it tore through their bodies without care. He had one goal at the moment, and he couldn't afford to fail it. If he didn't know if Cherri would be able to go on to fulfill her dream of creating a better hell without the need for yearly mass murder. "Cherri, you owe me for this," he growled, stomping on the head of a downed angel hard enough to splatter it under his heel. He didn't enjoy killing them, but he knew how bloodthirsty these types of angels were. They lived for the slaughter and would die by it too. Leaping back, one jumped off a high-rise with a cartoonishly big great sword that shattered the road where the blonde had been standing a moment before. "Punk, hold on Angie." A one-eyed demon with pink hair cursed, holding a piece of her shirt against a wound in Angel's stomach. He had been shot by one of the exorcists with a gun and was in critical condition. Looking back, she saw the demoness her friend had brought with him to the club, trying her hardest to push back the ever-encroaching swarm of exorcists. "Sorry Suger tits, this is my fault," Angel managed to get out of the pain. Looking up at his best friend, tried to put on a confident smile. Baggy glanced back at the other two in the ally with her. They ended up passing out at the strip club Angel dragged her to and woke up to being thrown out by the owner right before the extermination started. Their saving grace was that Angel had invited his apparent best friend to tag along, who managed to push some angels back with her bombs. She winced as the top of one of the weapons grazed her cheek, leaving a thin cut. Taking a step back, Baggy raised her harpoon in a last-ditch attempt to hold the horde until their time was up and they returned to heaven. She could see them laughing at them, they could have killed them by now, but found their meager attempts to fight back amusing. "Daily, perdoname," she said to herself as her hope was starting to run out. The chances that they could survive the extermination from start to finish were slim at best. Even now she could hear the sounds of her fellow demons being slaughtered by the invading army, their twisted smiles evident on their lead faces. Rasenrengen. The winged being cloaked in white slammed down from above, slamming two orbs of spiraling energy into two of the angels. The shockwave knocked Baggy onto her back, the wind generated by the attacks blowing up too much dust for her to see properly. As the attack died down, she was able to look up at their savior. 9 long white tails, each ending in a hand grasping a bladed weapon. His body was cloaked in white flame-like energy, and yet she knew exactly who it was. "It's him," Cherri muttered, recalling the being who came down from heaven a few weeks ago and healed her when she got hurt. When an exorcist flew at him, he spun on his heel and slammed its head into the side of a building, causing the wall to crack and the head to splatter. 2 of his tails lashed out, impaling 2 angels into the air and then tossing them aside. His golden-orange eyes narrowed as he stepped close to another, his palm striking their chest with enough force to rupture their backs. The tail came down and bisected the next with ease, followed by a trident soaring through the air, finding itself lodged in a lead mask. Grabbing one by the face, he broke its neck and used its horns to gut another. Planting his feet, he lurched back, bubbles of blue and white energy gathered together, coalescing into a condensed ball of energy. His mouth closed around the orb as everyone watched him swallow the energy. Time seemed to stand still as steam simmered out from between his leaning forward, a brilliant light erupted from his mouth the second his lips parted. The 3 demons watched on as a beam of energy engulfed dozens of exorcists, reducing them to nothingness in an instant. The beam pierced through the building on the other side of the street before shooting up into the air and exploding bright enough to light up the Pride Ring. That was a Bonzer blast. The pink-haired demon exclaimed with a star in her eye at the sheer power of that single attack. Naruto looked back at the 3 of them as his Saint Bomb had given them a moment to breathe room while the opposing angels regrouped. "You were the hunk Angie told me about, gotta say he didn't accurate," she said, walking up to him with a wide smirk. "Name's Cherri Bomb, don't wear it out," the Cyclops demon introduced herself. "Pleasure to meet you, name's Naruto Uzumaki," he said before looking at the injured angel dust. The demon looked a bit weary of the blonde as he approached him with a look that said to the world how pissed he was at the spider demon. "Let me see your wound," he ordered, kneeling down beside the porn star. "If you wanted to see my holes, give me some time to clean up," Angel joked, but the look on the saint's face didn't budge. "Sorry," he muttered as he took the cloth off his wound and exposed a bleeding hole to the angel. Baggy didn't say a word as Naruto healed the wound with a mere touch of his energy before standing back up and looking at her. "Are you alright, Baggy?" he asked, tail flicking one of his remaining weapons up at an exorcist that tried to get the jump on them from above. Angel flinched back as the body landed beside him. Yeah, she started rubbing her arm as she didn't know if Naruto knew why she had gone out last night. Look, we can talk about this back at the hotel, Vaggie, this isn't the time or place, Naruto stopped her. They were still in danger, and the exorcists could come for them again at any moment. His eyes widened as he saw them about to fire what looked to be rocket launchers at them. His tails wrapped around the three before the missiles blew them up. He had to get these guys out of here quickly. If he sent them back to the Happy Hotel, he was worried that Adam would have his men break in after them just to spite him for interfering with the extermination and expose Charlie to danger. There was one place he knew that would be safe-ish. Aggie, catch, he said, tossing a three-pronged dagger at her. Hold on to her. Naruto ordered the others, punching at Demon hard enough to crack their mask. As they did, he made a quick hand sign and the three teleported away in a flash. The three demons appeared in a large dark room. They had no idea where Naruto had sent them, but touching one of the walls, they could tell that it was made of a type of metal. Where are we? Cherri asked, seeing a knife that looked identical to the one Naruto had given them hanging on the wall. It looked like they were in some sort of storeroom filled with several old-looking weapons and scrolls. On one of the stands was a red short-sleeved cloak with black flames on the bottom next to a red one with red flames. This must be Naruto's storeroom, Vaggie replied, seeing the ensemble of weapons decorating the place. Spotting a massive sword with a hole in it, Angel couldn't help but chuckle. Think he's overcompensating? He asked the two women who rolled their eyes at the joke. Whoa, he even has bombs in here. Cherri mentioned, pulling out some round explosives that looked straight out of the Edo period of Japan. Their perusal of Naruto's stuff was cut short by an alarm going off. Intruders detected in storeroom 9. Intruders detected in storeroom 9. The green gas started to flow out of the vents in the room, much to their horror. Should open the door. Angel shouted as the door seemed locked from the inside. I got this. Fire in the hole. Cherri shouted, the bomb in her hand now lit. Angel and Vaggie got out of the way as the Cyclops threw the explosive at the metal door, blowing it wide open. Now that's some funking power. She yelled, grabbing a few more as they ran out before the gas could affect them too much. Where did he send us? Vaggie growled, her eye lighting up in anger as she wondered if Naruto had sent them to the wrong place. Running through the halls, they eventually entered what looked to be a prison. Cells upon cells lined the hallway as they walked through. To their horror, they demons stuffed into cages, some missing body parts like eyes or limbs. Maybe were covered in stitches, showing that they had gone through several operations. Hey. Please help. One of the demons shouted, rushing at the cell door. You gotta get me out of here. These people are funking crazy. He shouted before the collar around his neck trigged, electrocuting him until he was on the floor. However, the announcement that someone besides their torturer had arrived prompted other demons to try and beg for help while they had the chance. What should we do? Vaggie asked before being pulled by Angel away from the cells. Nothing. We gotta make sure we're safe before we worry about these guys. Besides, they probably deserve this anyways, he yelled as they ran through the prison hall. There was nothing here that they hadn't seen in hell before, but they had to wonder why Naruto had sent them here of all places. What did he have to do with the demons trapped and tortured here? Entering another room, Angel's face was met with a boot that sent him flying into the table. Angie. Cherri cried out at how easily her friend had been swatted away. It ain't lunchtime, you know, a figure said as he approached the group, the sound of metal rasping against metal filling the room as the door Vaggie and Cherri closed and locked. The two one-eyed demonesses looked at one another before looking back at what they assumed was the warden of the prison. The boss ain't gonna like 3 test subjects getting away, he mentioned before rushing towards the two ladies. Funk it. Eat bomb. The pink-haired bomber yelled with a wide grin, throwing an explosive at their assailant. The blast hit home, consuming him, yet a hand still reached out of the smoke and grabbed the unexpecting Cherri by the neck. Vaggie rolled out of the way of his other hand and pulled out her harpoon again. She watched as Cherri tried to punch and kick the man as he lifted her up, but to no avail. Oh, I like women who can fight back, he mentioned, throwing Cherri into the metal wall on the other side of the room like she weighed nothing. Oh no, Vaggie growled before rushing at him ready. She had already survived one near-death experience, she wasn't going to sit down and die this time. She saw the man grin under his hood, opening up his arms, as if telling her to hit him as hard as shit could. And she did. Taking his invitation, Vaggie thrust her spear deep into his stomach, pushing until it came out the other side covered in red. Oh yeah, he moaned in delight. It's been a long time since I felt such sweet pain, he told her, walking closer and pushing the harpoon deeper through him. Twisted and babe, the man requested. Vaggie's eye widened, seeing that the man seemed human, yet seemed to relish being stabbed in a way that should be fatal. Tearing her harpoon out, Vaggie tried going for his neck, but found a foot slamming into her stomach, lifting her body into the air. "Don't be too greedy," he said, seeing that she was going to try and stab him again. Turning back around, he batted away a bomb. "Don't think I forgot about you, Pinkie Pie." "The funk did you call me?" Cherri roared at him, tossing bomb after bomb, and yet he seemed to bat them away with ease. "The funk is with this guy," she asked herself, as he seemed as strong if not stronger than some of the exorcists that they had been fighting just before. Cherri went for another bomb, but before she do anything felt a prick on her neck and her world began going black. "Cherri!" Vaggie shouted as she rushed at the man, who turned and backhanded her down to the ground. Angel got up and started to shift into his demon form, but a needle struck his back, his eyes widened as a feeling similar to an overdose quickly set in. "Bad trip," he shouted before collapsing. Vaggie stood back up and glared at the man who seemed to have taken them all down. "Who are you, Puto?" she growled. The man just laughed and started to walk away. "Just a pious man," he told her casually. Vaggie felt a prick just like the other two and felt her body grow heavy. She lost the ability to stand and dropped down to the floor. Naruto's kunai slipped out of her pocket and clanged against the metal. "That's funk. Just die already," Adam sang as he strummed his guitar. The fact that Naruto had carved through so many of his exorcists didn't sit well with him. He knew that the power difference between the grunts and the saint was immense, but he had hoped they'd at least be able to stop him from saving the demons. "Well, they're gone now, Adam," Naruto replied as he flew up into the air to meet his fellow angel. "Now is it really worth your time and cronies to fight me, or maybe you should make use of the time you guys have left?" "And what if you get in our way again?" Adam asked, crossing his arms. Looking down at the gore-covered city below, he shrugged. "I don't exactly care for many of the other demons here, just those involved with the Happy Hotel. Trust me, seeing many of them up close, I know that a lot of them are real monsters," he told the golden-winged angel, who frowned but nodded. "That we can agree on," he stated, looking disgusted at the demons that ran around below, trying to survive their judgment. "Crap, you wasted so much of my time," Adam said before shooing away his exorcists, telling them to stop attacking the blonde and keep hunting down demons. They had to make up for the time and manpower wasted against Naruto. They were on a time limit, and much of that went to this stupid spat between them. So the white-winged angel drawled out. "Can we not tell God about this?" Naruto asked. "Tell him what?" Adam replied flatly. He knew if their boss learned of their little scuffle, they would both never hear the end of it. Two angels fighting in hell wasn't a good look for heaven. "Now go away, I have a job to finish," he said, flying off to continue his work. Naruto sighed as he looked down at the blood coating his body. "Guess I'll take a shower then go get them. They should be safe as long as they don't do anything stupid," he said to himself before flying off toward the hotel. His mind was stuck on thinking about how Hinata must have gone through something with all the people caught outside when the slaughter started. His other friends like Sakura, Sasuke, and even Jiraiya would have experienced that same horror in facing the ultimate end. At the end of the rainbow there's happiness. And to find it, how often I've tried. But my life is a race. Just a wild goose chase. And my dreams have all been denied. Looking up at one of the hotel balconies, he saw Charlie starting to sing, tears swelling in her eyes. The sight of her people being slaughtered must have been hard for her. Even more so if Vaggie and Angel were out there dead as well. Why have I always been a failure? What can the reason be? I wonder if the world's to blame. I wonder if it could be me. I'm always chasing rainbows. Watching clouds drifting by. My schemes are just like all my dreams. Ending in the sky. He watched as she used her magic to fire off some fireworks, a signal that the angels had left and it was safe to come out once again. They acted like nothing even happened despite the thousands that now lay dead across the city. In some cases, demons started to collect weapons or pick up the dead for parts or food. It was a bit grim, but he figured that many had lived through many of these before. Some fellows look and find the sunshine. I always look and find the rain. Some fellows make a winning sometime. I never even make a gain. Believe me. Naruto felt bad for her. She had been trying so hard, but yet another extermination came and went, and the one soul she had a chance to save might have been killed out there, despite her best being put forward to try and rehabilitate them. He could understand where she was coming from, having strived his whole existence to try and end war, only for it to continue to this very day. I'm always chasing rainbows. Waiting to find a little bluebird. NV. Naruto. Charlie cried out, ending her song early on the last line when she heard someone land behind her. Her smile died down, however, when she saw the state that he was in. Blood seemed to be soaked through his outfit from the sheer amount. What happened? She asked softly, worried that he'd gotten hurt trying to fix her issues again. A gentle smile spread over his face as he let out a sigh of relief. I managed to teleport them away before they got too hurt. I send them somewhere where no angel will ever find them, he explained, figuring that was the part that Charlie cared the most about. Her face flushed when he wiped her tears away from her eyes. Did you really think I'd break my promise? he asked with a fox-like smirk. No, I knew you'd be able to do it. What about you yourself? Letting out a confident laugh, he stretched and cracked his back. Don't worry, it's not my blood. Trust me, your dad punches harder than any of those idiots. Adam didn't even join in, so it was just a bunch of grunts, he joked, figuring that he needed to lighten the tension in the air just a bit. However, Charlie's face remained concerned about him. Will you be okay after killing other angels? She asked the question on her mind. He had already been walking a tightrope by coming down to hell to help out demons. It was something very few if any other heavenly beings would ever even consider. And now he had killed his own allies to protect some demons when they should have been dead after the extermination began. He had betrayed heaven for her desire to save Vaggie and Angel. Naruto didn't reply for a moment before waving it off. I'm sure it's fine. Adam and I agreed to not tell the big man upstairs about the whole thing. He attacked first, I killed them back, and we both kinda funked up, so I think we're good, he theorized. Or maybe I could be kicked out like your dad and will be stuck here, in which case I hope you enjoy my wonderful personality. The giggle escaped the princess's lips as she watched him take his bloodied coat off and incinerate it. You know, I wouldn't mind you staying here forever. We could always use more help with the hotel after we start rehabilitating people. She mentioned to him. She knew that all he had to do was prove that her plan worked, that a sinner could be redeemed. If he did, then he would return home without punishment. That made her feel sad. She enjoyed having him around. Naruto looked at her when she suggested he stay even after he was able to return to heaven. I think your dad would blow a gasket if anyone told him I'd be in hell forever, he mentioned. But we'll see, we have an eternity to try. You might get sick of me by then. Anyways, I'm going to shower and then go pick up the three. Don't need them touching something. The saint started walking up the stairs to his room. Watching him go, she couldn't help but think back about what her father had casually told her during the gala. How she could in theory have as many lovers as she wanted. It was true that there were no real rules on relationships in hell. So in theory, if both agreed, she could have both. The mere thought nearly knocked her unconscious. Vaggie groaned as she finally woke up from whatever they had injected her with. Her vision was blurry still, a possible lingering effect of the drug that had knocked her out in the first place. She vaguely remembered her quick clash with a human who somehow was able to easily overpower her, Angel, and Cherri. He had accused them of trying to steal from this place. A place that had stuff that clearly belonged to Naruto if the matching daggers were any indication. When the blonde had given her that blade, she didn't expect to be sent back to Earth. The mere thought of being back in her former world sent shivers down her spine. It brought back memories that she'd rather forget. Boy Biss, you awake? A demon in the cell across from hers asked, leaning back against the metal wall of his cell. Looks like you and your friends had a run-in with Haiden. Consider yourself lucky that he didn't mutilate you, he grumbled, looking at his left arm, or rather what was left of it, due to it being largely missing. But the Funk Angel growled, sitting up from where he had been thrown. Vaggie quickly realized that she and the two demons she had come with had been placed in the same cell. I swear when I said see Naruto again, I'm going suck his beep off his body, he threatened, kicking the cell door, but it didn't budge. Where are we? Vaggie demanded from the other demon. Couldn't tell ya. The demon growled. I got summoned by some high school girl who wanted to kill some girl her crush was dating. Figured funk it, what's the worst that could happen? He said before sighing and clutching the stump that was left of his arm. I got there and that religious funk was waiting with his damned side, spouting some nonsense about Jashin. Back then I thought, it's just one funking human, next thing I know I'm throwing up my lunch and being thrown in a cell. So what the funk is he? Angel questioned, wanting to get right to the point. From what I heard from other demons, he's a monster that's been alive since who knows. The only thing we know is that he has a boss that likes to take demons into a lab and do all sorts of funk shit to them. No one comes back from his room the same, he shivered, recalling his own experience with the yellow-eyed man. Angie, what in Satan's name did your friend get us into? Cherri asked, waking up in time to hear the demon explain a bit about where they were. You mentioned Naruto. Another demon asked from a few cells down, blond guy with a halo, right? I've seen him here a few times over the years. He doesn't really do much with us, but he talks to the other two about how many demons they've caught, he mentioned, much to the horror of the three. Did that bastard betray us, Vaggie thought as she realized that Charlie was alone with that man. It seemed like this was one of those demon hunting operations, almost like the ones from some movie she watched when she was alive. And if Naruto was a part of this Charlie was in trouble. Look, we're gonna try and break out soon, just run when you see a chance, the demon told them, looking a bit worse for wear. They could see several stitch marks on his body where he'd been cut open. It seemed like he had been experimented on thoroughly by their capturers. Ready? Naruto asked Charlie as he waited for her to get ready to go to the human world. He didn't exactly know if Lucifer would be angry that he was taking Charlie out of hell, but figured it was for the best if she met some of his business partners. Charlie gave an animated nod in confirmation. Yep. I can't wait to see what real humans are like. She stated, excited by the prospect of meeting humans outside of hell. Naruto's smile softened a bit at her naive innocence about the nature of humanity. But it was the innocence that allowed her to have hope that people could be better if given the chance. Charlie, the people we're gonna meet isn't going to be your average humans. Just don't be too upset if they're not what you expect, he warned her before placing a hand on her shoulder. Focusing on where he wanted to go, the two vanished and appeared inside a shrine. Where are we? She questioned, looking around the large wooden building. There were 9 statues in a circle of multiple beasts with animal-like appearances, but multiple tails surrounding a figure of what she thought looked like Naruto. Figured you'd want to see a bit of the human world, so I took us to a shrine some humans made for me a few hundred years ago, near where I sent Baggy and Angel, the blonde told her as he opened the door to reveal that they were a large park near a big city. Welcome to Tokyo. Naruto announced to the demon princess. Ooh, Charlie exclaimed with stars in her widened eyes as she took in the entirety of the world around her. She noticed the bright green and pink tree of the park where the shrine sat. The birds sang through the air without breathing jets of flames. And the humans. The humans. There were so many of them walking around them. They came in so many shapes and sizes. This is amazing. She shouted in awe of the many people praying, coming and going from the shrine. She could see some toads jumping around the area that was slightly larger than normal. She could feel the energy swelling inside of them, it was amazing. Welcome back to Myaboku Shrine, Lord Uzumaki, one of the attendants in purple said, his eyes closed with scars running over them as he swept some dirt off the stone floor. And I can hear you brought a lady? He asked, looking over at Charlie despite his eyes being closed. We're just here to see some sights and get some friends, Naruto explained as he motioned for Charlie to follow him. Wait, so this whole shrine is dedicated to you? Charlie asked in a bit of amazement. Yeah, I helped out a few people here a few hundred years ago when war broke out. To thank me they built this shrine and people have been maintaining it ever since. I try to keep up as best as I can by granting a little boost in luck here and there when I feel someone deserves it, the former Jinchuriki elaborated as he watched people come to pray for his protection and good fortune. That's amazing. Charlie exclaimed at how almost deified Naruto seemed to be in the eyes of the people there. It reminded her of the groups of humans who worshipped her father despite him being the ruler of hell. Soon people began to take notice of the princess and started to come up to her like she was a spectacle. Charlie began to bounce on the soles of her feet before breaking out into song in her excitement over being able to interact with real human beings finally. We demons may be powerful and feared. She started off thinking back on all the cruelties demons have committed both on earth and in hell. But there's something about humans that are revered. Charlie continued, singing in the middle of the shrine's courtyard, garnering the attention of the humans who had come to visit. Humans are filled with love and kindness. And their ability to create is truly timeless. Oh, humans, how amazing you are. With your heart so big and your mind so far. You may not know it, but you light up the dark. Oh, humans, how amazing you are. Naruto smiled as Charlie leaped over to a group of high school students who watching and let one of them take a group selfie with her, much to their joy. He knew that Charlie had unrealistic expectations of humans, despite many of the demons in hell having once been human themselves. They may be flawed and make mistakes. But humans can learn and grow with every step they take. She sang, hugging the blinded monk hard enough to squeeze the air out of his lungs. Their capacity for empathy is beyond measure. And their determination is a treasure. She continued, moving back towards Naruto and leaning against him with a grand smile on her face as he rubbed her hair. He let her continue to sing and dance throughout his shrine as the humans assumed she was some sort of cosplayer. He'd let her have her moment for now while he took care of some business at his shrine. Walking back into the shrine, he smiled at the statue of a large fox with 9 massive tails. A tear rolled down his cheek as he placed a hand on the sculpture's snout and gave it an affectionate rub. No matter how much time passes, I don't think I'll ever stop missing you, Kurama, he spoke with a hint of sadness. The final memory of him and Kurama flashed into his head. The fight against Sasuke was a hard one that cost him greatly. He knew it had to be done, but wished Kurama could have survived that ordeal. It might have helped avoid the mess that followed soon after. Thinking of the past, Lord Uzumaki? The priest from before asked as he came into the room. I must admit I didn't expect you to bring a demon here, he mentioned as he approached with a cup of green tea in hand. She's still singing about how amazing humans are, he said with a faint smile as his lord took the small cup and took a sip. She really can see the best in humanity. Not what I expected from that Fasol's daughter, the blonde replied warmly. My lord, those words are unbecoming of a being such as you, the priest in purple chastised the blonde of his language. Sorry Iso, Naruto laughed off. Are things going well in Jigoku? Iso questioned, wondering how his master's mission in hell had been going. Well, I had to send a few demons to Orochimaru's because they went out during an extermination, and most demons think that Charlie's idea is a complete joke, he sighed, knowing that while he had been having fun, he had made almost zero progress in proving his point to God and Lucifer, that even people damned to hell could change. Well, I expect nothing less from you than succeeding in a near impossible mission, Isso commented with a slight smirk. Lucifer said the same thing, you know, the blonde laughed much to the man's disdain. I've dreaded the day that I would agree with the snake, Isso sighed before chuckling, the two sitting down, while Charlie continued to make her rounds around the temple like a kid let loose at a toy store. But I suppose even the worst person can be right once in a while, he lamented. Geez, you're going to make me blush, Naruto said before his eyes widened. I forgot to tell the bastards. He yelled as he took his phone out and pulled up his contact to one marked Hibi team. Well, I was wondering when you would call Naruto-kun, a raspy voice came from the phone speaker. It was a voice that when he was younger he would never want to hear again, but over time had become a trusted yet dubious ally. I figure it must have something to do with the 3 specimens that appeared in your storage room, right? Hayden took the liberty of capturing them for the time being, the man said in a calm voice. Naruto facepalmed, knowing that if they had ran into Hayden, the immortal man likely roughed them up before capturing them. The religious fanatic hated demons, seeing them as an affront to God or Jashin, as he still referred to him as. In all honesty, he didn't know if God and Jashin were the same person, but it kept the zealot in line so he'd go with it. Please tell me they're not mutilated Orochimaru. You heard me, Naruto. They had a bit of a run-in with Hayden, but they still have all their parts in place. I put them in the cells until we were able to get a hold of you, figured that you wouldn't let such lowly beings steal your kunai, the snake Sanin chuckled, knowing that his blonde compatriot wouldn't allow a demon to steal his kunai so easily. But one could never be careful enough when it came to creatures from hell. We'll be there in a little bit, Naruto sighed, feeling a bit relieved that Angel, Cherri, and Vaggie were okayish. I'll make sure to have some ramen made in preparation. Now if you excuse me, I have some experiments to run Kukikuku, the snake-like man replied before hanging up the phone. Naruto felt a bit of pity for the demons who were about to meet the wrong side of Orochimaru. Naruto. Charlie shouted, rushing in with several animal-shaped plushies in her arms that matched the statues in the room that encircled the Naruto statue. The humans gave me all these gifts. I see she found the gift shop, Isso laughed as he decided to make himself scarce and leave the 2 beings. They even had one of you. She mentioned holding up a plush of Naruto to his face. Naruto looked a bit embarrassed at the sight of the chibi toy himself. He glared over at Isso looking for an explanation. We needed extra money for the Kurama expansion you wanted, he shrugged. Vaggie, Cherri, and Angel rushed through the halls of the prison in search of an exit from a swarm of other demons. Alarms blared signaling that the imprisoned demons were escaping. They didn't know how they had pulled it off, but somehow every blessed door had opened up letting them out. Run faster, you idiots. One of the demons yelled as he pushed his way past them, shoving Angel to the side to try and get further ahead, only for a triple-bladed scythe to bury into his skull from behind, the blessed blades killing him instantly, before being pulled back to its thrower. Punk, it's him. One of the demons yelled, the whole crowd came to a halt as they saw the religious lunatic approaching them, scythe resting on his shoulder as black demonic blood dripped down its blades. The flashing red lights made him seem like even more of a monster than them as his lips twisted into a crazed smile. And to think we were so kind to you all, letting you live instead of just outright killing you. How ungrateful your wretched kind is, he said as a wall closed behind the group, leaving the only way out behind Hayden. Guess I'll be able to give Jashin some extra sacrifices today, he laughed before rushing at the group. Funk it. Kill him. A ram-like demon roared as he charged at the shinobi only to be slashed in half. The group began to panic as the blade tore through them with ease, some banged on the metal door, begging anyone to come and save them. Some attempted to fight back, rushing the man as he stood his ground. Not a single demon that came towards him made it past. His scythe cleaved through them before they could take a step past them. Instead, he approached the rapidly dwindling group. Come on. Is this all your demons can do? He asked, throwing his weapon at them, decapitating dozens at once. He stopped as he got to the downed Angel who looked up at the gleaming scythe inches from his face. Well, if it isn't one of the thieves. I'll be sure to let Naruto know that you faced your judgment. Hayden laughed as he raised his scythe up into the air, but was hit by a bomb from Cherri, who had stolen it from Naruto's armory and kept it hidden between her friests. Come on, Angie. She yelled as she and Vaggie ran past the recovering Hayden. The 3 made a break for it, while Hayden was held up with the other demons who took advantage of Cherri's distraction. Man, I love you, Suger tits, Angel sighed as the 3 tried to make their way through the labyrinth that was the base they were in. They could hear the screams of horror and agony behind them as Hayden killed his way toward them. A few demons had managed to keep up with them while running from the mad priest. The sound of metal scratching metal however was growing louder and louder as Haydn got closer. One of the demons looked back and saw the man rushing at them at an insane speed, his scythe leaving a long gash on the metal floor as he dragged the weapon against it. He was covered in black demon blood from head to toe, a gleeful expression on his face. "One thief steak. Coming right up." He laughed as his blade shot toward Vaggie. But they never connected. Well, that was close, a hiss-like voice echoed throughout the hall as many of the demons who had been there for longer froze. "Lord Lucifer?" Cherri asked as she saw the man coming from the darkness. His pale white skin and yellow eyes reminded her of the King of Hell. But he was taller than the fallen angel, and instead of golden blonde hair, he had long black hair tied into a long ponytail with a bang that covered the left side of his face. He wore a white kimono with a purple rope-like belt. The white snake was coming out of his sleeve and had wrapped around Haydn, holding him in place before he could mutilate Vaggie. "Well, he might have stolen my aesthetic, no. My name is Orochimaru," he said calmly as White Snake slithered out from behind him, wrapping and biting the remaining demons beside the trio. Unlike Haydn who slaughtered them, Orochimaru seemed to subdue their kin through poison. "Sorry for my associate's lack of hospitality. We were unaware that you were guests of Naruto," he said before the metal doors unlocked and soldiers came to take the demons back to their cells. "Where are we?" Vaggie demanded, having had enough of being kept in the dark. Orochimaru chuckled. "Japan," he answered before releasing Haydn who looked a bit annoyed at being stopped mid-kill. "Make sure that the demons who planned this little escape attempt are dealt with accordingly," he ordered his fellow immortal. Haydn sighed but nodded and walked past the 3 remaining demons, not caring if he stepped in blood or a dismembered denizen of hell. "You 3 got lucky this time," he cursed before walking away. "Okay, mister. You have a lot of answering to do. Naruto told us we'd be safe here." Angel yelled at the pale man who chuckled menacingly. "And that would have been true had he informed us. However, given the short notice of your arrival, we had to take precautions to ensure you 3 weren't trying to steal from my dear compatriot," he explained, shaking his head at how this could have been avoided if Naruto called sooner. "Granted you did steal something," Orochimaru pointed out, looking at the Cyclops demon with a smirk. "And good thing I funking did." Cherri yelled back knowing the bomb had saved Angel. "That doesn't explain why you have demons locked up in here," Vaggie pointed out as the man motioned for them to follow him, something they hesitantly did. Better to stay on his good side, given how easily he stopped Haydn who managed to beat the 3 of them. Demons end up on Earth periodically, either because a human called on them or came here on their own, and typically not for good reasons. So, we catch them and use them for the betterment of humanity. We've made quite a few medical breakthroughs by studying demons kukuku, he explained much to their discomfort. To think that some modern medicine was made through the mutilation of demons. "So, how do you know Blondie?" Angel asked, wondering what the connection between Charlie's heavenly helper and the snake-like human was. Orochimaru chuckled, showing his fangs as he smiled at the memories of eons past. "I think I first met him in the Forest of Death when I ambushed his team. Ah yes, it was when I put my curse mark on Sasuke. He really did hate me back then, ruined several of my experiments," he told them, not really caring what they thought. His power had only grown with time and training, thanks to his seemingly unlimited lifespan. "If he hated you, then why are you 2 working together now?" Cherri pressed. "After the war, I was pardoned due to the aid I provided, and he allowed me to continue my work under the supervision of his subordinates during his time as Hokage, but eventually he too died," he lamented, knowing that Naruto had turned down the many offers of immortality that had been presented to him by the Sannin over the years. "Imagine my surprise when after a calamity wiped away nearly everyone, I find him back on Earth crying over the loss of everything he had helped build and protect," Orochimaru added, recalling when after crawling out from the destruction, he found Naruto in the remains of Konoha, bawling as everyone he knew was gone. "And the psychopath? Oh, I found him buried underground a few years before God ended the shinobi era. I kept him hidden to study his immortality," he admitted with a malicious chuckle, having been interested in how the silver-haired man could be sliced up in so many pieces and still live. It took Vaggie a moment, but she realized that if this was true, then this whole operation between the 3 of them must have been going on since the dawn of humanity, or rather the second dawn after their world was destroyed. It made her think of how much the 3 shinobi must have determined history over the years. Naruto seemed to be on par with Lucifer. If these 2 were comparable, then she doubted that anything less than a nuclear bomb could do much against the 2 who survived God's wrath. Slurp. Charlie happily drank from an oversized straw as the 2 blondes walked through the packed streets of Tokyo. Her eyes still had stars in them as she took in the grandeur of the human city. It reminded her somewhat of Pentagram City in Hell, yet it was much more peaceful. There weren't random fights everywhere or people doing hard drugs in public. She had continued to garner some looks from the humans, as her height, hair, pale skin, and personality drew a lot of attention from the rather normal-looking humans. "Wow, this place is so peaceful." Charlie commented, wondering if this was what heaven was like. Well, not every city is like this, Japan's crime rate is pretty low, Naruto commented as Charlie finished her drink, chewing on the orb sucked in from the bottom. I guess it helps that demons try to avoid this area, he mentioned, not having to hide what he was talking about thanks to a low-level genjutsu he'd learned over the years to prevent others from hearing them. Why's that? Charlie asked, wondering why demons would avoid coming here despite the power difference between them and humans. Naruto looked to the side and scratched the back of his head. Well, Japan is where my home was located when I was alive. Most powerful demons know my association with Japan and don't want to risk getting into a fight, so it's mostly weaker demons that come here. And they're typically handled by Orochimaru and Haiden, Naruto explained to the princess who was confused as to who those who were. And they are. Sighing, Naruto figured that he might as well explain since her girlfriend was with him right now. They're the last two humans from my era who never died. Both achieved immortality in one way or another. They help keep Hell's influence over humanity to a minimum, he told Charlie, not really wanting to get too into the inner workings of Orochimaru's actions. They're immortal, Charlie asked, shocked that humans had managed to achieve such a state. From what she knew, humans typically died of old age after less than a century, so for two to be alive from before the current age of humanity was insane. Even Naruto had died, and he was someone capable of fist-fighting her father. Haiden went through some ritual so that his body wouldn't die, regardless of how much damage he takes. And Orochimaru, Naruto shivered as he remembered how the former shinobi. Well, he has the ability to possess the bodies for a few years. Charlie raised an eyebrow at that, possess bodies. Like a ghost. Hinda, more like a parasite if I'm being honest, the blonde answered as they kept making their way through the massive city. Along the way they passed by a ramen stand and the smell of freshly made noodles caused Naruto to stop in his tracks, eyes locked on the small shop. Drool started to drop from his mouth as Charlie looked between him and the object of his desire. It didn't take her having lived with Naruto for a few weeks now to know that the man was obsessed with a Japanese dish. Apparently, ramen had been so ancient that it existed before modern humans inhabited the earth. I wonder if Naruto had anything to do with that, Charlie thought to herself, deadpanning at the notion that her blonde friend had reintroduced ramen to humanity millennia after his death. Taking his phone out, he sent Orochimaru a quick message before turning towards the demonic princess, want to get some lunch. What about Angel and Vaggie? Charlie asked anxiously, worried about how they were doing with people like the two former villains. Orochimaru's got them, he's giving them a tour, Naruto told her, the smell of his favorite dish too strong to deny. I guess even saints have their vices, Charlie muttered before smiling at her fellow blonde. Well, if they're okay then I guess we can make a quick stop, she said, wanting to try some authentic human food. The three demons squirmed in their seats as they were brought to a large office on the top floor of whatever building they were in. The large windows that made up the walls of the room overlooked a massive human city that they now knew was Tokyo. Orochimaru sat behind his desk with a fanged smirk on his face as the three were unnerved by his gaze. So you like to take in up the ass? Angel asked, wanting to break the tense feeling that filled the room. Angel, Vaggie shouted in shock at the vulgar question that had come out of the spider demon's mouth to their capturer. What? Look at him. I'm sure he's taken it a few times. He yelled back at her. Orochimaru raised an eyebrow at the question. It depends on the day, he replied coyly, figuring he'd play along with the three until Naruto showed up. Well, maybe we Angel started before being hit over the head by Vaggie. We're a cabron, we're not here to flirt. What's important is that Charlie is alone right now with someone who works with demon hunters, Vaggie exclaimed, worried that Naruto might have been trying to lure Charlie into a trap by using them as bait under the guise of trying to help them. If this man was able to make medicine with what he learned from cutting up demons, then studying someone like Charlie would be a goldmine for him. I'll assure you that Naruto wouldn't do that. No matter how much time passes, Naruto has always believed in giving everyone a chance to be better. Heh, he even gave me one, he commented, not wanting them to have the wrong impression of his associate. For all his flaws, Naruto was always able to see the best in others. Also, I have no interest in the princess, after all I don't need Lucifer trying to kill me. Last thing I want in another Atlantis incident. Wait, Atlantis is real? Cherri asked, confused at the sudden mention of the apparently real lost city. It was until Naruto punched Lucifer so hard into the ground that he shattered the tectonic plate under it and sunk the city. Orochimaru sighed, knowing that his saintly associate had accidentally gone too far during his fight with the ruler of hell and cracked the crust of the earth, dooming the city to fall into the depths of the ocean. So much knowledge had been lost. You don't mean that literally, right? Cherri questioned, not really able to imagine anyone being strong enough to punch the neglectful king that hard. The flat look on the pale man's face, however, told her all she really needed to know. Naruto has a habit of punching powerful beings in the face, the Sannin replied casually as he'd heard how Naruto had punched Kagaya, Momoshiki, and Ishiki across the face during their battles. That's funking awesome. Cherri shouted, excited at the prospect of possibly knowing someone that strong. That was something Charlie muttered as she replayed the events of Naruto's ramen binge. She thought that Beelzebub was a glutton, but to see someone eat nearly 100 bowls of ramen was traumatizing. Looking at her fellow blonde, she wondered where all the food had gone. Yep. Nothing quite like ramen. Naruto replied as they approached a large building with a golden snake statue a few meters before the door. Here we are, the former shinobi said as he pulled Charlie inside. The first thing that Charlie noticed was that many of the employees looked eerily similar to one another. They all had the same pale white complexion as her and her father with yellow eyes. Their hair was either black or some shade of white. She wondered if maybe they were all related in some way. Master Naruto, father has been expecting you, the receptionist said in a monotone voice, her voice. Thanks, Naruto muttered as he led Charlie to an elevator. He always hated coming here due to how creepy the staffing was. They were mainly Orochimaru's children, or rather genetic creations using his DNA and that of modern humans, making them stronger than normal people, but nowhere near as strong as a shinobi. A private military in essence. As the elevator opened up on the top floor, the attention of the 4 occupants was immediately turned towards them. Baggy. Charlie cried out in joy, rushing towards her girlfriend. Charlie. The Hispanic demon exclaimed, meeting her halfway. The two hugged tightly in the room while Naruto walked over to Orochimaru. Boy. You got some explaining to do, you funking beephead. Cherri shouted as she stormed towards the blonde. Where do you get off sending us to funking demon hunters? She demanded, pocking his chest. Yeah. They were doing all sorts of crazy experiments on demons, Angel added, crossing his arms. Experiments? Charlie asked, this being the first time that she'd been told about this. Yes, Orochimaru replied with a small smile on his face. After all, it's only fair given how much damage your people have done to Earth and its inhabitants. Even global warming and its denial can be directly linked to demonic activity. After all, the worse Earth is, the more likely humans are to sin and end up in hell, the snake-like man explained. Charlie rubbed her arm, feeling a bit awkward. It was no secret that demons have been making life on Earth increasingly bad over the years. So she couldn't really blame humans for fighting back and punishing demons who are here to make life better. Let's just go home, Vaggie interjected, not wanting to be here any longer than she needed to be. She already had some bad memories of her time on Earth, and being in place of the demons like herself were treated as lab rats made it worse. Right, Naruto said as arms made out of energy came out from his body and took hold of each of the demons' shoulders. Orochimaru waved at them before they vanished, returning back to hell. The group of 5 appeared back in the hotel lobby in a flash. And back home, Naruto said as his energy retreated back into him. Well mates, I'm gonna go take a nap. Gotta be fresh for tomorrow, Cherri said walking towards the exit. She knew that power vacuums opened up across Pentagram City after each extermination, and it became a free-for-all to grab up turf. I'll text you later, Angie. See ya, sugar tits, Angel said back before his shoulders slumped and he began to walk toward his room. Well, I'm gonna go take a non-drug-induced nap, he muttered, feeling the stress and weight of the last day, finally catching up to him. So Naruto started, seeing Vaggie with her arms crossed, sharp teeth clenched against each other, with a growl escaping through. The fierce glare she was giving him could make even Sakura's look tame. So Vaggie exploded, her eyes glowing red as she stormed toward the blonde. Do you have any idea what we went through because of you? Your friend almost killed us back there because someone forgot to tell them, you idiot. She shouted at him, fires of rage burning in her eyes. I wouldn't have had to send you there if someone didn't go out on extermination day. Naruto roars back at her, not willing to take her insults when this mess could have been avoided if she had just believed Charlie and stayed in the hotel. Naruto, Vaggie, let's not fight. It's been a long day, Charlie said, getting in between the two with a nervous smile on her face. Naruto sighed and took a step back while Vaggie looked to the side and moved away from the two. Sorry, Vaggie said softly, not liking the distressed look on her beloved's face. Did you tell him? She asked Charlie, who understood what she was getting at. Well, most of it, Charlie answered nervously. Eyebrow raised, and Naruto's attention was now captured by their conversation. Tell me what? Naruto asked, looking at the daughter of Lucifer, confused as to what Vaggie had been talking about. Charlie had told him more or less the reason that Vaggie had left, but it seemed that there was more to be said that the princess had yet say. Charlie squirmed under the gaze of her lover and the object of her blooming affection. Well, haha, she started, not really sure about how to go about this whole situation, her hand moving a strand of hair off her face as her blushed cheeks glowed a bit redder. A ringing filled the air as Naruto's hyphen went off. Looking at who was calling, he couldn't hold back his grimace. You two should get some rest. Whatever happened, you guys can tell me when you're ready, he said looking at the blushing Charlie before teleporting away to take his call. As Naruto appeared inside what looked to be a penthouse, a gloved fist slammed into his cheek, sending him into a wall. I probably deserved that, he muttered as he pulled himself out of the wall to see a furious Lucifer and a less than pleased Lilith. Oh, you deserve a whole lot more. Do you have any idea the shitstorm I've been dealing with from heaven since your little adventure during Extermination Day? Lucifer asked as he stormed toward Naruto, his truth form threatening to expose itself at any moment. You were told not to interfere with the other angels, and what do? You slaughtered dozens of them, and because of you, we have more sinner demons for next year than expected, he growled, knowing that for the next year and possibly the next one too, Hell's overpopulation issue would be worse because of the blonde saint. Not only that, but you took our daughter to Earth, Lilith added, crossing her arms. While she knew that Charlie could handle herself given her lineage, she knew of her daughter's soft side towards humans and how her naivety could get her in a bad situation. Especially to that snake's den, she mentioned. On top of the 3 sinner demons you sent there to escape extermination, Lucifer mentioned. Adam said he wouldn't tell anyone, Naruto grumbled. Oh yeah, because no one would notice the sudden decrease in exorcists, the fallen angel replied flatly, knowing that anyone would question what happened when Adam returned to heaven with fewer angels than he went down here with. So this part ends here. Alright, that's it for today's video guys, let me know in the comments section how was the story, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video, bye bye.